Over the next 2 hours, we're covering disturbing South Park theories about parental dysfunction, corporate grooming, and psychological damage. Keep watching for the theory about what Kenny's drug addiction is really masking. Let's begin. Cartman knew Scott was his half-brother the entire time. A fourth grader orchestrates an elaborate scheme to murder 2 adults, butcher their bodies with a hacksaw, cook them into chili, and feed them to their son while licking his tears. 9 seasons later, it's revealed the murdered father was also the fourth grader's father, making the victim his half-brother. The fourth grader screams in horror at this revelation. This theory suggests Cartman already knew Jack Tenorman was his father, and Scott was his half-brother when he killed them. In the episode 201, Scott Tenorman returns after spending years in a mental institution researching Cartman's background. He kidnaps Cartman and recreates the ChiliCon Carnival from Scott Tenorman Must Die, forcing everyone who knew about Cartman's father to reveal the truth. Scott makes Mr. Garrison speak. Protect who? Jimbo answers. Protect the Denver Broncos, Scott explains. There was a right tackle who had an illegitimate child with your slut of a mom, and everyone here covered it up to protect the Bronco name. The only Bronco who lived in South Park got bored 1 week and had an affair with Leanne Cartman. Scott forces Dr. Mephisto to confirm, it's true, Jack Tenorman was your father, then delivers the reveal. You killed your own father and then you fed him to your half-brother. Cartman screams, No! No! Scott laughs while shoving Cartman's face into a bowl of chili, reversing their positions from 9 years ago. Except the timeline doesn't support Cartman being surprised. In Cartman's mom is a dirty slut, and Cartman's mom is still a dirty slut, Cartman desperately tries to find out who his father is. Dr. Mephisto nearly reveals it before getting shot by his brother, who was a Denver Broncos fan. Convenient timing. The town tells Cartman his mother is actually his father because she's a hermaphrodite, a lie to protect Jack Tenorman and the Broncos. Cartman orchestrated the Scott Tenorman revenge plot, which required predicting multiple people's actions with perfect accuracy. A kid smart enough to engineer a double homicide could figure out the town lied about his parentage. Between the parentage episodes and Scott Tenorman Must Die, Cartman had years to investigate. Scott himself spent time in a mental institution researching and discovered Jack was his father. If Scott could figure it out, Cartman could too. Jack Tenorman was the only Denver Bronco living in South Park. Cartman knew one of the possible candidates was a Denver Bronco because the whole town was protecting the Broncos. There's only one Bronco in town. Scott's last name is Tenorman. Scott's dad is Jack Tenorman. Basic deduction. When Scott scams Cartman by selling him pubic hair, Cartman knows or strongly suspects Scott is his half-brother and Jack is his father. The revenge transforms from random cruelty into calculated familial destruction. Cartman screams no, no, in 201, then immediately says, My dad was Scott Tenorman's dad. Don't you guys realize what that means? My dad was a ginger. Kyle is shocked. Dude, you killed your own dad, and you're worried about that? Cartman only cares about being half ginger, not about murdering his father or torturing his brother. Someone who just learned devastating news doesn't pivot to concern about hair color. Mitch Connor, Cartman's hand, cheers him up. You're forgetting, you're also half Denver Bronco. That makes you pretty cool. Cartman instantly recovers. Hey, you're right, that does make me pretty cool. No guilt, no processing, just relief that Bronco blood cancels out ginger genes. For 9 seasons, Cartman carried the knowledge that he killed his father and fed him to his half-brother while nobody else knew. That's power committing the perfect crime, where even the victim doesn't understand what happened. In 201, Scott forces the truth into the open. The town knows. His friends know. Cartman's scream is fury at exposure, not shock at revelation. Throughout the series after Scott Tenorman Must Die, Cartman never mentions his father again, never investigates further, just drops it. Completely unlike Cartman, who obsesses over everything unless he already has the answer and wants to avoid drawing attention to it. He shows no interest in the Denver Broncos, despite having Bronco DNA, never tries to connect with his father's legacy, never mentions Jack Tenorman again after orphaning Scott. Scott spent years researching Cartman and discovered they're half-brothers. What probably broke him worse, realizing Cartman likely KNEW they were half-brothers when he orchestrated the murders. Scott's revenge specifically recreates the Chili Carnival and forces Cartman to hear the truth publicly. exposing Cartman's secret to everyone else, not revealing new information to Cartman. Cartman tasted Scott's tears and called them yummy, while knowing Scott was his half-brother crying over their shared father's death. He licked the tears of unfathomable sadness off his brother's face after feeding him their dad, fully aware of the blood relationship. 9 seasons of maintaining the lie. 9 seasons of pretending ignorance. Cartman in 201 isn't learning what he did. He's watching everyone else finally learn what he's always known. If Cartman's evil came from secret knowledge he refused to face, then now we move to Randy, whose chaos comes from the self-destruction he can't stop choosing. Randy deliberately sabotages his success. Randy Marsh has a pattern of destroying everything good in his life, and the most disturbing example might be the time he gave himself testicular cancer just to legally buy marijuana. This theory suggests Randy actively sabotages himself whenever things are going well, because he's terrified of the responsibility that comes with success. Back in season 14, in the episode called Medicinal Fried Chicken, Randy takes the boys to KFC after soccer practice, because apparently bribing kids with fried chicken is acceptable parenting in South Park. Cartman is especially excited, practically sprinting to the car while yelling about 3-piece meals and crispy strips. The kid only shows up to Friday practice because KFC comes after, which honestly tracks for someone whose entire personality revolves around chicken. When they arrive at the restaurant, something's different. The KFC logo is gone, replaced by signs advertising medicinal marijuana. The building still looks like a KFC with that distinctive architecture, but now it's selling weed instead of wings. A customer walks out with a bag of marijuana, and Cartman has an absolute meltdown screaming, "What the F?" like someone just told him Santa isn't real. Randy goes inside to investigate and discovers that Colorado's new laws allow medicinal marijuana sales, which he immediately sees as the greatest advancement in human civilization. He's ready to buy half a pound of various strains with zero hesitation, celebrating the future like he's living in some kind of stoner utopia. Then the clerk drops the requirement. Randy needs a doctor's prescription showing the marijuana is medically necessary. Most people would accept this minor inconvenience and move on with their lives. Randy Marsh is not most people. Instead of finding another hobby or just dealing with the disappointment like a functional adult, Randy decides the logical solution is to give himself cancer. Randy visits a doctor who explains that testicular cancer is pretty much his only shot at getting a prescription. Normal human beings would hear testicular cancer and immediately reconsider their priorities. Randy hears testicular cancer and thinks, challenge accepted. He goes home and microwaves his testicles, literally puts his balls in the microwave like leftover pizza, deliberately exposing himself to radiation to induce tumors. This is where the self-sabotage becomes undeniable. Randy had a perfectly fine life, stable job, family, normal-sized testicles, but he chose to nuke his own genitals rather than exercise a single ounce of self-control or patience. The results are exactly as horrifying as microwaving your own testicles would suggest. Randy's scrotum starts swelling to absurd proportions, growing larger and larger until he's literally bouncing around South Park on his own balls like he's riding some kind of flesh-colored space hopper. He has to wheel them around in a wheelbarrow because that's a normal thing to have to do when you make good life choices. Sharon tries to have a serious conversation about his deteriorating condition, telling him his balls are getting bigger and asking if they can maybe reconnect intimately. Randy's response? "My eyes are up here," treating his grotesque medical situation like Sharon's being rude for noticing the elephant-sized testicles in the room. He's more concerned about getting high than the fact that his scrotum has developed its own gravitational field. Randy's testicles grow so massive that he physically cannot fit through the dispensary door anymore. The balls are too big. Any reasonable person would see this as a sign from the universe to stop, reconsider their choices, maybe reflect on whether buying weed is worth losing the ability to enter buildings. Randy instead organizes a protest with other men who've also given themselves testicular cancer, because of course he found other people this stupid. They bounce around the parking lot chanting, "What do we want? Bigger doors. Where do we want them? Weed stores," like they're demanding civil rights, instead of facing consequences for deliberately giving themselves a life-threatening disease. The protest accomplishes nothing except demonstrating that Randy would rather lobby to change the entire infrastructure of commercial buildings than admit he made a terrible decision. The situation spirals into complete chaos. Meanwhile, Cartman gets involved in an illegal KFC operation because the restaurant got replaced by the weed shop, creating a black market for fried chicken, which leads to shootings, deaths, and general mayhem. Eventually, both laws get repealed, marijuana becomes illegal again, and KFC returns, rebranded as medicinal fried chicken because South Park has decided fried chicken has medical benefits. Randy finally gets surgery to remove his cancerous megaballs, receiving prosthetic testicles to replace what he destroyed. The doctors make Sharon a coat from Randy's removed scrotum skin, which might be the most disturbing souvenir in television history. And Randy seems perfectly fine with all of this, showing zero regret about giving himself cancer, destroying his body, and traumatizing everyone around him. Randy casually mentions how much easier it is to fit through doors with his new prosthetic balls, as if the entire experience was just a minor inconvenience, like getting a flat tire, instead of deliberately inducing cancer in his own body. Sharon is clearly upset about the whole situation, but Randy deflects by giving her the scrotum coat, which she instantly loves because apparently in South Park, wearing your husband's diseased flesh is acceptable fashion. The episode ends with other women complimenting Sharon on her new coat, asking where she got it, completely normalizing the fact that she's wearing human skin like she picked it up at Target. Randy walks away from this entire experience having learned absolutely nothing, which is kind of his thing. The immediate aftermath reveals Randy completely unbothered by what he's done. He microwaved his testicles, gave himself cancer, let his scrotum grow to catastrophic proportions, required major surgery, and ended up with prosthetic balls, and he treats the whole thing like a funny story to tell at parties. Sharon's anger gets brushed aside with a coat made from Randy's own body. The fact that Randy sees this as a win shows how deep his self-destructive patterns run. He'd rather blow up his entire life and rebuild from the ashes than maintain something stable and functional. The long-term implications of Randy's behavior pattern reveal something genuinely disturbing about his psychology. He literally gave himself a potentially fatal disease rather than cope with not getting what he wanted immediately. That's a legitimate mental health crisis wrapped in a plot about weed and fried chicken. Randy represents every adult who refuses to grow up, who chooses chaos over stability because stability requires consistent effort. He had a normal life and deliberately destroyed it because maintaining normalcy is boring, and boring doesn't get attention. Randy Marsh sabotages himself constantly throughout the series, and this episode is just the most literal example. He could have simply not given himself cancer. That was always an option. But choosing the reasonable path means accepting limitations, acknowledging he's just a regular person with regular problems. Self-destruction is easier because it's dramatic, it creates chaos, and when everything falls apart, he can blame external circumstances instead of facing the fact that he burned down his own life. Randy's terrified of success because success requires showing up every day and making responsible choices, and responsible choices don't involve microwaving your own genitals. He'd rather bounce around town on diseased testicles than be a functional adult, and that's somehow both the funniest and most disturbing thing about his character. If Randy's chaos comes from his own self-destruction, next up is Tweak, a kid whose torment isn't chosen but forced on him by the people meant to protect him. If you're liking the video, hit that subscribe button. Tweak's parents dose his coffee with meth. Tweak is one of the most anxious characters in South Park, constantly twitching, screaming, and experiencing what looks like severe caffeine overdose symptoms. This theory suggests his extreme anxiety comes from his parents' coffee shop, where they might be adding something extra to keep their son in a permanent state of jittery panic. Back in Season 2, in the episode called Gnomes, we meet Tweak properly for the first time when Mr. Garrison assigns him to work on a group project with Stan, Kyle, Cartman, and Kenny. The boys immediately protest because Tweak is clearly a mess. He's disheveled, twitching uncontrollably, and when Mr. Garrison tells him he'll do great, Tweak screams, "I can't take that kind of pressure. No, sweet Jesus, play he-he's." This is a child being asked to work on a school presentation, and he's reacting like someone just told him to defuse a bomb while riding a unicycle. The episode introduces Tweak's parents, Richard and Mrs. Tweak, who own Tweak Bros Coffee House in downtown South Park. Richard gives this whole speech about how his father opened the store 30 years ago, caring only about making a great cup of coffee, with dramatic music and a backdrop of rolling hills appearing behind him like he's perfectly selling the American dream in liquid form. The setup becomes suspicious when you consider the timeline. Tweek's parents have run a coffee shop for 3 decades. Tweek presumably has been drinking their coffee his entire life, because what else would the son of coffee shop owners drink? And Tweek exhibits symptoms that go way beyond normal childhood anxiety. The kid experiencing what looks like a full-blown panic disorder combined with motor tics and an inability to function in basic social situations. When the boys try to work with him at his house, Tweek is constantly screaming, twitching, and having what appear to be anxiety attacks over relatively minor things. He can't sleep because he's convinced underpants gnomes are stealing his underwear, which turns out to be real, but still. Throughout the episode, Tweek's behavior escalates in ways that suggest something beyond normal anxiety. He's pulling at his hair, his eyes are twitching, he's having full body spasms, and he's constantly on edge like he's consumed 17 espressos in a row. The boys have to drag him along on their project, and he spends most of his time screaming incoherently or having panic attacks about various perceived threats. When they discover the underpants gnomes are real and follow them underground, Tweek is still in his perpetual state of caffeinated terror, screaming and freaking out even when nothing particularly threatening is happening. The really suspicious part comes from Richard Tweek's behavior throughout the episode. When the Harbucks Corporation tries to buy out his coffee shop, Richard refuses, giving this whole patriotic speech about simpler coffee for a simpler America while romanticizing his family business. He's weirdly defensive about his coffee formula, insisting they take longer to brew and don't call their drinks fancy names like corporate chains do. At the end of the episode, after the town decides to let Harbucks stay, townspeople actually taste Harbucks coffee and realize it's way better than Tweek's coffee. One guy specifically says, "It doesn't have that bland, raw sewage taste that Tweek's coffee has." Raw sewage taste. That's what people have been drinking at Tweek Bros for 30 years while Richard acted like he was serving liquid gold. The immediate implications are disturbing when you connect the dots. Richard Tweek has been running a coffee shop that serves objectively terrible coffee for 3 decades, yet somehow stayed in business. How do you keep customers coming back for coffee that tastes like sewage? Maybe you add something extra to keep them hooked. And if Richard's willing to put mystery ingredients in customer coffee, why wouldn't he do the same for his son? Tweek exhibits every symptom of someone who's been heavily caffeinated or given stimulants since early childhood. His constant anxiety, inability to sleep, twitching, paranoia, and general state of panic all align with someone experiencing chronic stimulant exposure. There's also that disturbing moment at the end where Richard jokes about selling our son into slavery, and Tweek screams in genuine terror before Richard adds, "Just kidding, son." The joke falls flat because Tweek's reaction suggests he genuinely believed his father would do that. What kind of relationship creates that level of fear in a child? Combined with the fact that Richard has been potentially dosing his customers with bad coffee for decades, it's not a huge leap to think he'd experiment on his own kid. The long-term repercussions of this theory are genuinely horrifying. If Tweek's parents have been putting stimulants in his coffee since childhood, they've essentially been medicating their son without his knowledge or consent, potentially causing permanent psychological and neurological damage. Tweek's anxiety disorder would be iatrogenic, meaning caused by his parents' actions, rather than a natural condition. Every panic attack, every sleepless night, every moment of terror he experiences would be directly traceable to his parents deciding to use him as a walking advertisement for their coffee shop. Look how energetic our coffee makes you. Except the energy is actually a child experiencing stimulant-induced psychosis. The fact that Richard is willing to serve sewage-tasting coffee while acting morally superior about simpler times suggests he's either delusional or deliberately deceptive about his product. Either way, Tweek is the victim. His extreme anxiety has become his defining characteristic, something everyone in town treats as just how Tweek is, when it might actually be the result of years of his parents dosing his drinks. The other kids don't want to work with him because he's too high-strung and unreliable. Teachers find him disruptive, and he's basically been socially isolated because of symptoms his parents may have artificially created. That's creating a disability in your child for business purposes. Tweek could have been a normal kid. Instead, he's a jittery mess who can't function in basic social situations, who experiences constant terror who can't sleep without imagining threats everywhere. And if this theory is correct, his parents did this to him on purpose, 1 cup of their special home-brewed coffee at a time. That's creating a human billboard for your failing business, except the billboard is your son and the price is his entire childhood. If Tweak's misery comes from what his parents put in his cup, then shifting gears, Token's story shows what happens when the prison isn't chemical, it's social. Token's family stays in South Park as punishment. Token Black lives in a mansion that's 4 times bigger than any other house in South Park and brings lobster tail to elementary school lunch. This theory suggests his wealthy family didn't randomly choose to live in this backwater Colorado town. They're either in witness protection, exiled, or serving some kind of punishment that requires them to stay put. Back in Season 5, in the episode called Here Comes the Neighborhood, we get a masterclass in economic inequality disguised as a science fair. Butters presents a homemade volcano, and Cartman literally tapes a pen to a pencil at the last second and calls it the duality of writing devices that occur in nature. Miss Chalk-Sondick gives him a check minus, and Cartman responds by threatening to make her eat her parents, totally proportionate response to bad grades. Then Token walks up carrying a laptop computer, downloads meteorological data from the internet, creates weather prediction graphs using his dad's video projector, and hands out color-printed copies. The kid brought a full TED Talk to 4th grade science class. Cartman immediately calls him out. Token only succeeded because his family has more money than God. Token tries to deny being rich, which is like Jeff Bezos claiming he's middle class. The kid lives in a house 4 times the size of anyone else's and brings crab cakes in his lunchbox. That's, my parents could buy this entire town, wealthy. The other kids pile on, making Token feel like the world's richest outcast. Token goes home to his massive estate, complete with a polo field, where he plays alone, and complains to his parents about not fitting in. His parents are sympathetic, but here's what they don't offer: any explanation for why they're living in South Park. They could afford Beverly Hills, Manhattan, Monaco, anywhere with more than one family who knows what arugula is. But they're stuck in this frozen Colorado town where Olive Garden counts as fancy dining. Token decides to solve his loneliness by placing an ad in Forbes magazine inviting other rich people to move to South Park. The response is immediate. Will and Jada Pinkett Smith, Oprah Winfrey, Snoop Dogg, Bill Cosby, and Kobe Bryant all show up. These A-list celebrities, who have teams of people preventing bad real estate decisions, move to South Park based on a magazine ad written by a child. The town's reaction reveals locals have been quietly resenting Token's family this whole time. Within hours, South Park establishes separate facilities for rich and poor, separate bars, separate bus seating, separate restaurants. They basically instituted economic segregation faster than you can say, class warfare, mister. Garrison and the men dress up as ghosts, bed sheets with eye holes, real creative, to scare away the wealthy newcomers, because apparently rich people are terrified of low-budget Halloween costumes. And it works. Will Smith runs screaming, Oprah flees, Snoop Dogg evacuates, every wealthy person abandons their mansions and escapes like they're fleeing a zombie apocalypse. Except Token's family. They just stay. They watch every other millionaire flee in terror, and they're like, nah, we're good here. Token even tries living with lions at the zoo, because wild predators seem more welcoming than South Park's human population, spending time with Aslan the lion, who loves pranks. Eventually, Token realizes he'd rather be with his school friends, who immediately start calling him a pussy, instead of mocking him for being rich, because they needed a new bullying angle. Here's what makes this disturbing. Every other wealthy person with functioning survival instincts evacuated, but the black family remains. Will Smith, who starred in Independence Day and knows how to flee danger, ran away. Oprah, who has FU money and a private jet, left immediately. But Token's parents stay in a town that just organized harassment campaigns against rich people. Why would any wealthy family voluntarily stay somewhere that actively hates them? Token's misery is the entire premise. His parents watch their son become so isolated he considers living with wild animals. The town just proved they'll dress as discount ghosts to drive out anyone with money, yet the family stays, expressing no attachment to the community. They just stay, like they signed a contract they can't escape. Witness protection would explain everything. A wealthy black family forced to relocate to a predominantly white, working-class town where they stick out like a Lamborghini at a monster truck rally. They can't leave because leaving would expose them to whatever danger necessitated protection. Token's wealth isn't a privilege, it's a neon sign saying, "These people don't belong here." The mansion isn't success, it's a really nice cell in an open-air jail where everyone hates you. If Token's family is in witness protection or forced exile, then Token's entire childhood is collateral damage. Every time he gets mocked, every moment of isolation, every instance of feeling like an outcast all stems from being trapped somewhere they don't belong. The episode ends with Token accepting his friends will mock him for being a pussy instead of for being rich, and he prefers this. Token's family represents the worst punishment, forced integration into a community that doesn't want you, with no ability to leave even when your kid is suffering. They're inmates serving an indefinite sentence, and Token grows up thinking the problem is him, normalizing his isolation because he doesn't understand his family's presence might not be voluntary. That's generational trauma with a nice lawn. If Token's stuck where he doesn't belong, then next, Cartman shows what happens when no one ever stops you. Cartman's manipulation gets more dangerous because no one ever stops him. Cartman doesn't get away with terrible things because people feel sorry for him. He gets away with them because he's mastered manipulation, and every authority figure in South Park enables him at every stage of escalation. This theory suggests the town's refusal to stop him early means his behavior keeps getting more dangerous, creating a pattern where hate speech becomes discrimination, discrimination becomes violence, and violence gets erased with performative redemption. Back in Season 9, in the episode called Ginger Kids, we watch this pattern play out in real time like a disturbing case study in how societies enable fascist rhetoric by treating dangerous speech as harmless. The episode starts innocently enough with oral reports in Mrs. Garrison's class. Tolkien presents on the solar system, nice in education, and then Cartman gets up to give his presentation titled Ginger Kids, Children with Red Hair, Light Skin, and Freckles. Within seconds, he's showing pictures of red-headed children and calling them sick and gross, claiming they have a disease called gingivitis that exists because ginger kids have no souls. He compares them to vampires, calls them vile and disgusting, and warns that the gingers could envelop our lives in blackness for all time. Kyle immediately recognizes this for what it is, a hate speech. He protests, calling it prejudice, and pointing out that people aren't actually creeped out by gingers. But here's where the enabling begins. Mrs. Garrison shuts Kyle down with, "Kyle, let Eric give his presentation." When Kyle keeps objecting, she tells him, "Kyle, if you want to debate Eric, you can do so with your paper tomorrow." The teacher, the adult, the authority figure in the room, treats Cartman's dehumanizing rhetoric as legitimate discourse worthy of debate. She frames it as free speech versus censorship instead of recognizing it as dangerous hate propaganda. That's the first failure point, the moment where someone should have stopped this but chose to enable it instead. The immediate consequences are predictable and swift. By the next day, Cartman's rhetoric has infected the student body like a virus. Stan, Kyle, and Kenny walk into the hallway and witness 4 boys, Craig, Jimmy, Clyde, and Tolkien, physically kicking a red-headed kid out of the cafeteria, telling him, "Ginger kids eat in the hallway." Jimmy calls him a slur. These aren't kids who were previously prejudiced against redheads. They literally just heard Cartman's speech yesterday and immediately adopted his bigotry as their own social policy. The hate speech didn't just exist in a vacuum, it directly caused real discrimination and segregation. Kyle sees this and says, this is what happens when Cartman is allowed his right to free speech, connecting the dots between Mrs. Garrison's enabling and the immediate harm. Stan wishes Cartman could see what it feels like to be ginger, which gives Kyle an idea. That night, Kyle, Stan, and Kenny break into Cartman's house while he's sleeping and use makeup, skin bleach, and hair dye to make him look like a ginger kid, pale skin, red hair, freckles, the works. When Cartman wakes up and sees himself in the mirror, he has a complete meltdown, experiencing firsthand the discrimination he created. His mom tries to comfort him, but Cartman is devastated, crying about how he's now one of the soulless monsters he spent yesterday demonizing. You'd think this would be a learning moment, right? That experiencing the consequences of his hate speech would make him understand the harm he caused? Wrong. Cartman doesn't learn empathy, he learns escalation. Instead of recognizing that his bigotry was wrong, Cartman decides if he's now ginger, then gingers must rise up and take revenge. He organizes the Ginger Separatist movement and starts recruiting other red-headed kids to join his cause. Within days, Cartman has gone from giving a hate speech to organizing an actual paramilitary group. Ginger kids start appearing in people's homes at night, terrorizing families, grabbing non-ginger children off the streets. It's like watching hate speech evolve into Kristallnacht in fast forward. Stan and Kyle try to hide in a barn, but get overwhelmed by the mob of radicalized redheads who break through the walls to capture them. The escalation reaches its peak at the Airport Hilton's Sunset Room, because even genocidal movements need affordable conference space, apparently. Cartman has transformed the venue into a command center, complete with a lava cauldron and cages full of captured non-ginger children. He stands before his followers and declares, "The day of reckoning is finally upon us. What we begin here, we will take worldwide, until the blood of every non-ginger child has been spilled." This is a literal genocide plan. Cartman has kidnapped children, imprisoned them in cages, and is actively planning mass murder. We've gone from offensive classroom presentation to attempted ethnic cleansing in less than a week. Kyle, handcuffed and about to be thrown into the lava as the first victim, asks to speak to Cartman privately. He whispers in Cartman's ear the truth. Kyle, Stan, and Kenny made him ginger. Cartman isn't naturally a redhead. They dyed his hair while he slept. And here's where Cartman reveals his true genius for manipulation. Instead of getting angry or seeking revenge, Cartman immediately pivots to performative redemption. He throws away his staff, backtracks completely, and tells his followers, "We shouldn't be doing this. If we go and exterminate everyone who isn't ginger, then we're no better than they were for thinking less of us." The gingers are understandably confused because 15 seconds earlier, Cartman was screaming about killing everyone. One kid points this out. "You just said they should all die 15 seconds ago." Another asks what Kyle told him, correctly intuiting that something suspicious happened. But Cartman doesn't miss a beat. He launches into a song about how hand in hand, we can live together, and we shouldn't kill each other 'cause dying's lame. It's the most transparent manipulation imaginable. A complete 180-degree reversal motivated entirely by self-preservation, not genuine change. Kyle sees right through it, calling him a manipulative asshole. And Cartman admits it. He says, "Yes, but I'm not going to die." Here's the disturbing part. It works. The gingers, who moments ago were ready to commit genocide under Cartman's leadership, immediately accept his fake redemption and start singing along. Everyone gets released from their cages. The captured kids go free. Cartman faces zero consequences for organizing a paramilitary group, kidnapping children, and planning mass murder. There's no police or accountability. He manipulated his way into radicalization and manipulated his way out of consequences, and the episode ends with everyone just moving on. This pattern reveals something genuinely disturbing about how South Park, and by extension, society, handles Cartman's escalating behavior. At every stage, authority figures had opportunities to intervene and chose not to. Mrs. Garrison could have stopped the hate speech, but defended it as free speech. Parents could have addressed the discrimination, but didn't. Law enforcement could have arrested him for kidnapping, but never appeared. Each failure to intervene gives Cartman permission to escalate further, and each successful manipulation teaches him that consequences are negotiable if you're good enough at performing redemption. The long-term implications are terrifying. Cartman has learned that hate speech leads to power, that radicalization works, and that even when caught planning genocide, a quick song about unity will erase all consequences. Kyle recognizes the manipulation but is powerless to stop it because the systems that should prevent this kind of escalation consistently fail. The episode ends not with Cartman reformed, but with Cartman getting away with attempted mass murder by weaponizing the language of tolerance and redemption. He'll do it again because nothing stopped him this time. The manipulation gets more dangerous with each iteration because every success teaches him that there are no real consequences for his actions, only opportunities to manipulate his way out of accountability. If Cartman's danger grows because no one ever stops him, then finally, Stan's story shows what happens when the damage is done and the boys can't escape the trauma that keeps them together. The boys' friendships are trauma bonds. Stan Marsh needs to drink whiskey just to hang out with his childhood friends. This theory suggests the boys don't stay together because they genuinely enjoy each other's company. They stay together because years of shared trauma have made normal friendships impossible, trapping them in toxic patterns they can't escape. Back in season 15, in the episode called Asperger's, Stan struggles with a condition that makes everything look and sound like literal garbage. His parents are divorcing, his cynicism causes him to explode in class, and he gets diagnosed with Asperger syndrome because he got a flu shot a year earlier. Stan gets dragged to an Asperger's group therapy center where he meets a doctor and other patients exhibiting weird behaviors. But when left alone, everyone drops the act like they're in a badly written spy movie. The doctor reveals nobody there actually has Asperger's, they don't even believe it exists. The center is actually a front for cynical people who believe the world really has turned to ruin and some supernatural force is gaslighting everyone else into thinking things are fine. The leader doing his best, Morpheus from the Matrix cosplay, gives Stan a glass of Jameson Irish whiskey as a serum that lets him interact with the illusion world, where things don't look like feces. While drunk, Stan suddenly becomes cheerful and even enjoys watching Jack and Jill, which is probably the most unrealistic part because nobody enjoys that movie, not even under the influence. The alcohol doesn't cure Stan's depression. It just slaps a smiley face sticker over the existential dread so he can function. This becomes important because it establishes that Stan can only tolerate his reality when chemically altered, which is basically every college freshman's coping mechanism, but with more fourth graders. Meanwhile, Cartman mishears Asperger's as Asperger's because his brain operates on a frequency that only picks up butt-related humor and starts selling hamburgers that gain their flavor from marinating in his underwear. It's disgusting, wildly successful, and somehow involves Kyle as his business partner. The burgers become a hit because Cartman's ass sweat apparently creates flavor-enhancing gas, which raises biological questions nobody wants answered. Here's where the friendship trauma becomes explicit. Stan, while drunk, tries to reconnect with Kyle. He wants his best friend back, wants things to return to normal, but Kyle shuts him down completely, explaining things have irreversibly changed and he must remain with Cartman Burger. Kyle isn't happy about selling Asperger's, he's stating it as an unavoidable fact, like he's explaining gravity or taxes. Their friendship has fundamentally broken, and Kyle would rather partner with Cartman on underwear burgers than be Stan's friend while sober. That's friendship death with a side of existential horror. Stan gets pulled deeper into the cynics' conspiracy, sent armed to infiltrate corporate meetings, passes out from alcohol, and ends up tied up by fast food executives trying to steal Cartman's Asperger secret. There's a shootout, the freedom fighters die, and through all this chaos, Stan has a moment of clarity when he refuses more whiskey. Even though his parents are divorcing and Kyle is no longer his best friend, Stan realizes he's actually excited about change. He says this could be the start of new, original adventures for everybody. For the first time in episodes, Stan isn't depressed about things falling apart, he's energized by it. The breaking of his old patterns, the dissolution of his normal life, the E&D of his childhood friendships, excites him. That's the disturbing tell. Stan is happier when his life is exploding than when it's stable. That's someone who's been trapped in a suffocating pattern for so long that destruction feels like freedom. Then Randy appears and ruins everything as Randy does, because Randy's entire character is guy who makes things worse. He announces that he and Sharon worked out their differences and are getting back together. This should be good news, parents reconciling, family reuniting, stability returning. Instead, Stan is surprised and upset. The episode explicitly frames his parents staying together as a bad thing for Stan. Set to Fleetwood Mac's Landslide, because nothing says, "We're beating you over the head with symbolism," like reusing your sad montage music. Everything returns to normal. The Marshes move back home. Stan reconciles with Wendy. Kyle breaks off his partnership with Cartman and shuts down the business. And Stan immediately relapses into depression. Not gradually, immediately. The return to normalcy is what makes him sick. His parents staying together doesn't heal him, it imprisons him. Kyle being his friend again doesn't bring joy, it brings obligation. The episode shows Stan's depression isn't caused by change. His depression is caused by being forced back into patterns that stopped working years ago but continue, because that's what everyone expects. The final scene is devastating in its simplicity. Stan wakes up and Kyle, Kenny, and Cartman appear in his bedroom, inviting him to the movies. Just like old times, boys hanging out, seeing a film, normal friendship activities. Except Stan is resigned to his fate. Those are the actual words used, resigned to his fate. Like he's accepting a life sentence for a crime he didn't commit. He doesn't want to go. He doesn't want to hang out with them, but he has no choice, because this is what their friendship is now. Obligation without joy, pattern without purpose. A social contract signed in trauma and enforced by shared history. And here's the most disturbing detail. Stan takes a swig of whiskey on his way out. He needs alcohol just to hang out with his childhood friends. A fourth grader requires substances to tolerate spending time with people who are supposed to be his best friends. That's someone trapped in relationships they've outgrown but can't escape, self-medicating just to get through social interactions that normal kids find fun. This reveals the boys' friendships as trauma bonds rather than genuine connections. They don't stay together because they like each other. They stay together because years of shared insanity, alien abductions, deaths, resurrections, witnessing murders, surviving Cartman's sociopathy have fundamentally damaged their ability to form normal relationships. Who else could they be friends with? Who else would believe their experiences? It's like a support group, except nobody's trying to heal, they're just trapped in the same room together forever. Kyle admitted things have irreversibly changed. Stan gets excited about breaking free but gets forced back. He needs whiskey to tolerate his friends. These are markers of people bound together by shared damage, who can't separate because the trauma connecting them is deeper than any genuine affection. If Stan needs alcohol in elementary school just to hang out with his friends, what happens later? The boys are trapped in a cycle where the shared trauma binding them together also makes being together unbearable. They can't stay because it makes them miserable, but they can't leave because no one else would understand them. Stan's depression isn't a phase, it's his natural response to being imprisoned by relationships that continue through obligation and shared damage rather than actual friendship. The episode ends with Stan walking out his door, whiskey in hand, resigned to his fate. That's being held hostage by your own history, forced to maintain relationships that require substance abuse just to tolerate. The boys aren't friends anymore, they're prisoners of their shared trauma, and none of them know how to escape. If the boys' friendship feels like a cage made from shared trauma, then Kenny's story is the darkest proof, because while Stan drinks to survive his friends, Kenny dies to survive his family. Before we keep going, make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Kenny's parents know about his curse and keep it going. Kenny McCormick dies constantly, remembers every death in horrifying detail, and resurrects the next day with nobody else remembering. This theory suggests his parents know about the curse and deliberately keep it going, possibly through cult involvement, occult deals, or because his repeated deaths serve some dark purpose that benefits them. Back in season 14, in the episode called Mysterion Rises, we finally get confirmation of what fans suspected for years. Kenny actually dies and comes back, and he's the only one who remembers. The episode reveals Kenny's superhero alter ego, Mysterion, who's basically Batman if Batman was a poor kid from Colorado, whose superpower is immortality through constant resurrection, which sounds cool until you realize it means experiencing death dozens of times. The boys are investigating Cthulhu's appearance in South Park, and during the chaos, Kenny reveals his secret to his friends. He can't actually die permanently, and it's destroying him psychologically. Kenny explains that he's died countless times, and every morning he just wakes up in his bed like nothing happened. Nobody else remembers his deaths except him, not Stan, not Kyle, not even Cartman, who's probably relieved he doesn't have to keep saying, "You killed Kenny." Kenny describes it as a curse, not a gift, and he's desperate to understand why this keeps happening to him. The way he talks about it makes it clear this isn't some cool superhero origin story, this is genuine trauma. The kid has experienced drowning, being crushed, electrocution, dismemberment, and every other horrible death you can imagine, and he remembers all of it in perfect detail. Here's where things get disturbing. The episode establishes that Kenny's parents, Stuart and Carol McCormick, have connections to a Cthulhu cult. They're shown participating in occult activities, and the timing is suspicious as hell. Kenny's curse has clear supernatural origins. Kids don't just randomly develop resurrection abilities without some kind of dark magic or deal with eldritch entities involved. The show never explicitly states his parents caused the curse, but they're involved with the exact type of occult forces that would cause this kind of thing. That's like finding your parents hanging out at a demon summoning and being shocked when you wake up possessed. The McCormicks are the poorest family in South Park, living in a decrepit house and struggling to afford food, yet they keep having more children. Kenny has a younger sister, Karen, who he's very protective of, and his parents continue breeding despite having absolutely no resources to support their kids. Most people in poverty actively try to avoid having more children because kids are expensive and they're already broke. But Stuart and Carol just keep going, pumping out kids like they're running some kind of broke-ass fertility cult. Why would they do this? One disturbing possibility: they need backup children. If Kenny's curse requires continued sacrifices, or if something ever goes wrong with his resurrection, they need replacement kids ready to go. Think about the mechanics of Kenny's curse from his parents' perspective. Every time Kenny dies, he resurrects the next morning in his own bed at home. His parents would absolutely notice this pattern. Their son dies, often publicly. They presumably deal with the body or the aftermath, and then boom, he's back in his bed the next morning like nothing happened. After the first few times, any parent would realize something supernatural is happening. After dozens of times, they'd know for certain. Yet Stuart and Carol never seem surprised, never investigate, never try to prevent Kenny's deaths or figure out what's happening. They just continue living like everything's normal. The Cthulhu connection makes it even darker. Cthulhu worship in South Park involves dark rituals, sacrifices, and deals for power or immortality. What if Kenny's parents made a deal with these forces? Maybe they wanted something: immortality, protection, power, money they never actually got, and the price was their son's eternal suffering. Kenny becomes the sacrifice that keeps renewing itself, dying over and over to fulfill whatever bargain his parents struck. Every resurrection might require cosmic energy or balance, which explains why his parents keep having more children. Each new kid might be insurance, or they might feed into the same dark system that keeps Kenny cursed. There's also the question of why the McCormicks stay so poor despite their cult connections. Usually, cult leaders or people with occult power use it to gain wealth or influence, but the McCormicks remain destitute, living in squalor, while their son suffers eternally. What if their poverty is the punishment? What if whatever entity granted Kenny's curse also cursed the family with eternal poverty as payment? They can't improve their situation, can't escape South Park, can't stop having children. They're trapped in their own hell, while Kenny experiences his. The whole family might be cursed, but Kenny bears the worst of it through his repeated deaths. The immediate aftermath of Kenny revealing his curse shows his friends believing him but being unable to help. The curse is beyond their understanding or ability to break. Kenny is trapped in this cycle, and even revealing the truth changes nothing. His parents continue their lives, never acknowledging the pattern, never trying to save their son from eternal suffering. That silence speaks volumes. Either they don't know, which seems impossible, or they know and choose to do nothing, because doing something would cost them whatever they gained from the original deal. The long-term implications are absolutely horrifying when you connect all the pieces. Kenny has been dying since the first episode of South Park. That's years of deaths, hundreds of horrific experiences burned into his memory forever. If his parents know and are complicit, they've been allowing their child to suffer unimaginable trauma for years to maintain whatever dark bargain they struck. Every time Kenny dies horribly on screen and we laugh, his parents go home knowing it'll happen again, knowing he'll remember it, and doing nothing to stop it. Karen, Kenny's little sister, might be next in line. If the curse is familial, or if the deal requires continued sacrifices, she could be doomed to the same fate. Kenny's protectiveness toward her might stem from knowing what's coming. He's trying to shield her from a curse he knows their parents won't prevent. The McCormicks keep having children not out of carelessness, but out of necessity for whatever dark purpose Kenny serves. Kenny's curse makes him the ultimate victim of parental betrayal. His friends forget his deaths, the town moves on, and his parents, who should protect him above all else, either caused his suffering or allow it to continue for their own purposes. He dies in agony repeatedly, resurrects with the memories intact, and faces a family that treats his eternal torment as background noise. That's child sacrifice with a respawn mechanic, and his parents are holding the controller. If Kenny's pain comes from parents who curse him to die forever, then now onto Butters, whose parents' cruelty does the job. Butters' parents are systematically trying to kill him. Butterscotch experiences more psychological and physical abuse than any other kid in South Park, and this theory suggests his parents are actively trying to kill him. The extreme groundings that lock him in the basement without food, the constant psychological torture, and the way they send him to dangerous situations might all be disguised murder attempts with built-in plausible deniability. Back in Season 5, in the episode called Butter's Very Own Episode, we get definitive proof that his parents are willing to actually murder their own child. The episode starts wholesome enough with Butters excited about his parents' anniversary dinner at Bennigan's. His mom asks him to secretly follow his dad to see what anniversary gift he's buying, so Butters puts on a fake mustache and becomes Inspector Butters, tracking his father around town. Butters follows his dad to the seedy side of South Park and watches him enter a theater showing Fisting Fireman 9, then to the White Swallow bathhouse. Butters innocently writes all this down, completely oblivious to what he's witnessing. He tells his mom that Dad sure had a nice night out, describing the bathhouse visit like his dad went to a relaxing spa. His mom doesn't understand until Butters mentions seeing his dad with another man, and then she connects the dots that her husband is cheating on her with men. Linda Stotch has a complete breakdown. Instead of confronting her husband or filing for divorce, she decides the appropriate response is to murder their child. Not her husband, her innocent son, who was just following orders. She drives Butters to Stark's Pond and tries to drown him in the lake. She literally attempts to kill her own child because she's upset about her husband's infidelity, which is like burning down your house because you don't like the wallpaper. Butters survives by floating downstream and eventually making his way home. When he shows up, his parents aren't relieved. They're panicked about the cover-up falling apart. Chris doesn't say, "Thank God you're alive." Instead, he immediately starts working with his wife to create an elaborate lie about some Puerto Rican guy who kidnapped Butters. They hold a press conference blaming a fictional person, dragging the Ramseys, Gary Condit, and O.J. Simpson into their narrative to cover up Linda's attempted murder. Butters gives them a speech about how lies snowball, and covering up one lie with another is when you get into real trouble. His parents actually listen and decide to come clean, but only because Butters guilted them into it, not because they felt genuine remorse about attempting to drown their child. At the press conference, Chris confesses everything. Then Linda admits she went crazy and drove my son into the lake to kill I am. Butters' reaction is immediate horror. "Kill me? Jesus Christ." He genuinely didn't understand his mom was trying to murder him until that moment. Stan's response is perfect. "Damn, dude." The disturbing part is what happens next. Absolutely nothing. Chris says, this family has to get to Bennigan's, and they all just go to dinner. Like attempted murder is a minor squabble that can be resolved with burgers, but there's no child protective services. The town watches a woman confess to trying to kill her child, and everyone just disperses. Butters goes to Bennigan's with the parents who tried to murder him hours earlier. At the end, Butters tells his friends he'll just forget about his dad being gay and his mom trying to kill him once he gets his burger. Stan asks, "Really?" And Butters admits, "Nah, I'm lying." That's the most honest moment. Butters knows he's traumatized, knows this will damage him forever, but he's already learned to mask his pain and pretend everything's fine. This episode establishes that Butters' parents are capable of actual murder. Linda didn't just think about it, she drove him to a lake and tried to drown him. Chris didn't protect his son, he helped cover it up and create false accusations. Both parents chose self-preservation over their child's life and safety. The long-term implications become horrifying when you look at the pattern. Butters gets grounded constantly, and his groundings are locked in the basement for extended periods, sometimes without food. His parents send him to conversion camps where abuse happens. They subject him to extreme psychological punishment for minor infractions. In one episode, they literally sell him. This theory suggests those aren't punishments, they're murder attempts with plausible deniability. Lock him in the basement without food? If he starves, it was discipline that went too far. Send him to abusive camps? If he dies there, it's the camp's fault. Each extreme punishment is another opportunity for Butters to die in a way his parents can explain away as tragedy rather than murder. The episode proves they're capable of murder and willing to attempt it. When it fails, they just continue parenting like nothing happened. That's a failed attempt they'll likely try again. Butters survives through sheer luck, but he's trapped with parents who've already proven they'll kill him if pushed hard enough. Every grounding could be the last one. And Butters knows it. He admitted he's lying about being okay. He's a child living with attempted murderers, pretending everything's fine because the alternative is admitting his parents want him dead. If Butters suffers at home, next the town shows it's no better. It experiments on kids for its own comfort. Enjoying the video? Don't forget to subscribe. The town uses kids for social experiments. 2 straight kids get forced into a gay relationship because Asian girls drew fan art of them, and the entire town decides their actual sexual orientation matters less than everyone's feelings. South Park doesn't just fail to protect children, it actively uses them as props to make adults feel progressive or entertained, manipulating kids' identities like their adjustable settings on a social justice simulator. Season 19's Tweak X Craig starts with an assembly celebrating Asian American students and their art. Wendy presents yaoi art, Japanese-style drawings of romantic relationships between boys, created by the new Asian students, and every single picture is of Tweak and Craig in increasingly romantic situations. We're talking French kissing, moonlight dances, Craig reaching into Tweak's underwear while Tweak strokes his head, which gets an "ah" from the girls, like it's a puppy video instead of sexualized art of actual children in their school. The boys are understandably confused because, they're not gay and they're definitely not dating. Craig confronts the Asian girls directly, holding up a picture of himself pushing Tweak on a swing and asking, "Why are you doing this?" The girls just talk to each other in Korean and Japanese about his outfit, completely ignoring his actual question. Tweak is having a full panic attack. Me and him aren't together. Why is this happening? Everyone thinks I'm gay. What if my parents find out? They're both genuinely distressed, but nobody cares because the fan art is too cute to ignore, apparently. PC Principal brings them into his office. And here's where things escalate from weird to disturbing. Craig asks the obvious question, "Why are the Asian girls drawing pictures of us being gay?" PC Principal responds with, "What's wrong with being gay?" "Nothing wrong with that," Craig clarifies. "But we aren't. I'm not." And Tweak adds, "I'm not either." PC Principal's response, "That is completely irrelevant. Their actual sexual orientations, their actual identities, their actual feelings completely irrelevant, according to the authority figure whose job is protecting students. What matters is affirmative consent protocols, as if they're definitely in a relationship and just need proper guidance on how to navigate it." The town immediately adopts this narrative like they've been waiting for it. Their parents freak out because they think their sons are gay and didn't tell them. Craig's dad asks, "Have you been having sexual relations with that boy?" Tweak's parents are equally distressed, his mom worried about what the neighbors will think. Nobody stops to verify if this relationship actually exists or if maybe the fan art isn't documentary evidence. The Asian girls drew it, therefore it must be true. Therefore, these 2 4th graders need to perform a gay relationship to satisfy everyone's expectations. The boys eventually decide to fake being in a relationship just to stop the harassment. They hold hands at school, act coupley, do all the performance behaviors expected of them. But maintaining a fake identity is exhausting. Shocker. So they stage a public breakup at Whole Foods, where Tweak accuses Craig of stepping on people and using them. The breakup is deliberately dramatic and messy because they think making it seem real will let them go back to their actual lives as straight kids who were never dating. Instead, the entire town has a collective meltdown. Adults start crying in grocery stores, relationships begin failing everywhere. Randy brings Sharon flowers like he's trying to save their marriage by proxy. The mayor looks at a photo of her dead husband and mourns. Couples who've been together for years suddenly can't function because 2 elementary school kids broke up a relationship that never existed in the first place. The town's emotional stability apparently depends on 2 children performing a romance for their entertainment and validation, which is concerning on multiple levels. Cartman, of all people, recognizes this is a problem and recruits his imaginary boyfriend, Cupid Me, to fix things. The solution involves manipulation. Cupid Me shoots an arrow into Craig's dad's head and literally pees in his mouth, which is somehow a magical love potion in this show's logic. Thomas Tucker suddenly has a complete attitude change and tells his son he should embrace being gay because you can't fight being gay, and Japan picks who they pick, and that's that. He gives Craig $100 and tells him he loves gay Craig, which would be touching if Craig were actually gay instead of a straight kid being bribed to maintain a performance. Tweek shows up at Craig's house and says maybe they should say they're back together. Craig protests, "Dude, I'm not gay and neither are you." Tweek responds with the most disturbing line in the entire episode. What does that have to do with anything? Their actual sexual orientations have become so irrelevant in the face of the town's expectations that Tweek has internalized that their real identities don't matter. What matters is making everyone else happy. Their performers obligated to maintain the show. Craig eventually agrees, and they walk through town holding hands while a Japanese love song plays and the entire world celebrates. Randy and other adults cheer them on from Whole Foods. Parents smile with approval. The mayor clutches her dead husband's photo like this validates her existence. In Japan, businessmen sing karaoke about Tweek and Craig's love, while live-action footage of the boys plays on screens behind them. In China, President Xi Jinping is so inspired, he passionately kisses his secretary. Two American fourth graders performing a fake relationship has somehow become an international movement, and their actual feelings are treated as background noise to everyone else's emotional journey. The town established that children's identities are negotiable based on what makes adults feel good. Two kids explicitly stated they weren't gay, and the response was, "That's irrelevant, perform the relationship anyway." Their autonomy, their truth, their actual orientations all dismissed because the performance was more important than reality. Craig literally says, "I can't be something because everyone wants me to be. I have to be myself." And the town responds by manipulating him back into the fake relationship anyway, because his actual self makes everyone sad. If the town can force Tweek and Craig into a fake gay relationship because fan art made people feel things, what other identities can they manipulate? What other experiments will they run using children as subjects? The precedent is set. Kids' actual feelings are completely irrelevant compared to everyone else's needs. The whole point here is that the town decided two kids' actual identities matter less than everyone's feelings about those identities. Tweek and Craig kept saying they weren't gay, and the adults just kept saying, "Irrelevant, now hold hands for us." The town literally needs two fourth graders to perform romance, just to function emotionally. Tweek and Craig are trapped in a performance they never auditioned for, maintaining a relationship they don't want, because the alternative is the entire town collapsing into depression. South Park doesn't protect children, it uses them as experiments to validate adult feelings, and nobody sees a problem with that because everyone's too busy celebrating how progressive they are. If the town experiments on kids to feel better about itself, then moving on, Cartman's story shows what happens when the experiment starts at home with a mother who builds her own monster and calls it love. Cartman's mom deliberately created a monster. Leanne Cartman doesn't just enable her son's sociopathy through weakness, she actively sabotages every attempt to fix him because she wants him broken. Multiple experts successfully reform Cartman into a well-behaved child, and every single time Leanne deliberately undoes their work within hours. She's the architect of Cartman's manipulation, building a monster because having a healthy son means losing her codependent best friend. Season 10's Tst starts with Cartman getting called into the principal's office because he handcuffed Billy Turner's ankle to the school flagpole, gave him a hacksaw, and told him his lunch milk was poisoned and the only way to get the antidote in time was to saw through his own leg. Billy's in the hospital now, and Cartman's defense is, "Well, he called me chubby." Mr. Mackey tells Leanne that Cartman's behavioral problems start at home, which is the diplomatic way of saying, "Your parenting is creating a serial killer, and we're all just waiting for the bodies to pile up." Leanne cries and says she doesn't know what to do with him, and Cartman immediately pivots to damage control by singing about how she's the greatest mom in the world. They sing together in harmony, "My mom's the best mom, better than your mom," which would be sweet if it wasn't a manipulative duet designed to deflect from the fact that her son just orchestrated a Saw movie scenario in elementary school. Mr. Mackey suggests calling Nanny 911, a reality show where professional nannies come fix out-of-control kids. Nanny Stella arrives and immediately starts implementing structure. No video games until chores are done, timeouts for bad behavior, the whole proper discipline playbook. Cartman responds by mocking her accent, calling her a fat bitch, spitting in her mouth when she gets down to his eye level, and generally treating her like she's an annoying NPC in a game he's trying to speedrun. Stella tries psychology, asking why he's so angry and validating his feelings, like she learned in some workshop about connecting with troubled children. Cartman plays along just long enough to ask why she became a nanny, and when she starts explaining her career motivations, he cuts her off with, "I don't really care," and goes back to his video game. Stella tries the reward system next, offering positive reinforcement for good behavior. Cartman eats it and immediately demands more rewards for doing absolutely nothing. When she refuses, he screams that she's a liar and a bitch, and that he's going to cut her. Stella ends up in a mental hospital shortly after, completely broken by a fourth grader. The show brings in Super Nanny Jo Frost next, the British nanny from the actual Super Nanny show. She lasts even less time than Stella. Cartman defeats her so thoroughly and quickly that the episode doesn't even show the details. We just see her leaving in defeat while Leanne cries about how nothing works. Multiple trained professionals with years of experience fixing troubled children all get destroyed by Cartman within days, which establishes that he's a tactical genius at psychological warfare who's been training for this his entire life. Enter Cesar Millan, the dog whisperer, who's famous for rehabilitating aggressive dogs by establishing dominance and creating structure. Leanne is skeptical because he works with dogs, not children, but Cesar explains that Cartman exhibits the same behavior patterns as an undisciplined animal. He sees himself as pack leader because Leanne never established authority. Cesar tells her she has to stop being Cartman's friend and start being his mother, which Leanne finds confusing because apparently she's been treating her son like her bestie instead of her child. Cesar's methods are simple and brutal. He asserts dominance by making Cartman sit, stay, and follow commands like a dog. When Cartman acts out, Cesar makes a tst sound and corrects him immediately. He doesn't negotiate, doesn't validate feelings, doesn't reward bad behavior. He just establishes that he's in charge and Cartman is not, and it works. Within days, Cartman is completely reformed. He stops being manipulative, starts doing his homework, makes himself healthy breakfasts of grapefruit and lean ham, loses almost 10 pounds, and becomes genuinely well-behaved. Cartman briefly considers killing his mom to escape this new structure, because, of course, he does, going so far as sneaking into her bedroom at night with a knife and roll of paper towels. He stands over her bed, ready to stab, but his conscience kicks in for maybe the first time ever. He realizes, maybe the world doesn't revolve around me, and physically vomits up what looks like black evil leaving his body. He passes out in the hallway, fighting his good and bad sides, and when he wakes up, the transformation is complete. Cartman has become a normal, healthy child. Leanne sees him the next morning doing homework and eating a healthy breakfast without being asked, and she cries with pride. When Cesar returns, she tells him, "I've lost a best friend, but I've gained a son." That line is the entire problem right there. Leanne wasn't raising a child, she was maintaining a codependent friendship with someone she gave birth to. Cartman wasn't her son. He was her emotional support human who she kept trapped in childhood so he'd never leave her. Cesar tells her this is healthier, and when Cartman gets older, he'll be able to be her friend too, like a normal adult relationship between parent and child. Leanne invites Cesar to see Madame Butterfly as a thank you, but he declines, saying he's just a client and his work is done. He leaves, and Leanne suddenly doesn't have her emotional support nanny anymore. Cartman walks by and says he's going to make his bed, then mentions he's working on a science project with Stan and Kyle on Friday. This is healthy behavior, having friends, doing homework, showing independence. Leanne should be thrilled. Instead, she immediately sabotages it. She asks if he wants to go see Madame Butterfly with her instead. Cartman declines. She offers to take him to Kentucky Fried Chicken afterward, still declining. She adds they'll go to Target and buy him a Mega Ranger. Cartman hesitates, then tests the waters. "Could I, perhaps have 2 Mega Rangers?" And Leanne hugs him and says, "Yes, darling, you can have whatever you want." The episode ends with a beatific smile spreading across Cartman's face while foreboding music plays. That smile isn't joy, it's the realization that he can use his reformed behavior as leverage to manipulate his mom even better than before. He learned that pretending to be good gets him more than actually being bad ever did, and Leanne just taught him that lesson by immediately returning to bribes and enabling the second she felt lonely. Leanne didn't sabotage Cartman's reform out of weakness or ignorance. She did it deliberately because she needs him to be her codependent best friend instead of an independent son. Every expert who successfully fixed Cartman took away her emotional support human, and she couldn't tolerate that. She'd rather have a monster who needs her than a healthy child who doesn't. The foreboding music confirms what we just witnessed. Leanne didn't lose control of her son. She never wanted control in the first place. She wanted a permanent child friend who would never grow up and leave her, and she'll sabotage every attempt to fix him to keep that relationship alive. Cartman's sociopathy isn't despite his mother's parenting, it's because of it, and she likes it that way. If Leanne builds monsters out of love, then now we move to what her creation truly is, because Cartman stopped being human a long time ago. Cartman isn't human. A fourth grader orchestrates a perfect double homicide, predicts every move his enemies will make, butchers 2 adult bodies overnight with a hacksaw, cooks them into chili, feeds them to their son, and times a famous band's arrival to mock the victim at the exact moment of maximum trauma. This theory suggests Cartman doesn't just have sociopathic tendencies, he's something genuinely inhuman, wearing a kid's skin, possibly possessed, demonic, or an entity with supernatural intelligence that no human child should possess. Season 5's Scott Tenorman Must Die starts with Cartman bragging about reaching manhood because he got his first pubes. Turns out he bought them from Scott Tenorman, a 9th grader, for $10, because apparently Cartman thought puberty works like a vending machine. When the other kids explain you don't buy pubes, you grow them, Cartman realizes he's been scammed and becomes obsessed with revenge. A normal kid would maybe throw eggs at Scott's house or spread rumors at school. Cartman decides to orchestrate a plan so complex it requires predicting human behavior with perfect accuracy, committing murder, and executing everything with military precision. You know, typical 4th grade stuff. Cartman's first few revenge attempts fail spectacularly. He tries training a pony to bite off Scott's wiener because, of course, that's his first plan, but Scott outsmarts him. He tries getting Radiohead to come call Scott totally not cool, but Scott tricks him into thinking Radiohead showed up when it was just a bunch of random dudes wearing wigs. Every attempt fails because Cartman's operating like a normal vengeful kid, reactive, sloppy, easy to predict. Scott keeps humiliating him, and by the end, Cartman has been publicly mocked, lost money, and looks like a complete idiot in front of everyone. Then something shifts. Cartman goes quiet. He stops the obvious revenge attempts and starts planning something else entirely. His intelligence suddenly stops being childlike and becomes something genuinely otherworldly, like watching someone go from playing checkers to suddenly executing a 47-move chess strategy that ends in checkmate. Cartman invites everyone to a chili con carnival at his house. He specifically invites Scott and makes a big deal about there being a big surprise and a pony ride, even gives Scott a coupon like he's running a Groupon deal for his own humiliation. Scott shows up acting smug because he thinks he's already won. He made his own chili with pubes from every kid in town mixed in, planning to humiliate Cartman one more time by making him eat it. Classic Scott move. Except Cartman predicted everything. First move, he predicted that Stan and Kyle would betray him. He knew they'd warned Scott that the carnival was a trap involving the pony. And they did. Stan and Kyle told Scott about the pony plan because they thought Cartman's revenge scheme was obvious and dumb. Cartman counted on this betrayal and built it into his plan, like he was playing 4D chess while everyone else was playing Connect 4. Second move, he predicted that Scott, warned about the pony, would try to do something to it, but wouldn't go himself. He predicted Scott would send his parents instead. How did he know this? How did a 4th grader predict with certainty that a 9th grader would send his parents to deal with a potentially dangerous pony rather than risk his own safety? That's reading human psychology at a level that would make FBI profilers nervous. Third move. He told Farmer Denkins that violent pony killers were in the area. Denkins is established as a crazy redneck who shoots trespassers on sight. You know, the type owns more guns than books, asks questions, never. So Cartman knew Denkins would shoot anyone who came onto his property at night. When Scott's parents showed up to rescue what they thought was a starving pony, Denkins shot and killed them both. Cartman basically weaponized a paranoid farmer like he was playing real-life hitman and just found the perfect NPC to do his dirty work. Fourth move. Cartman arrived at the scene in time to see Denkins giving his report to Officer Barbrady, meaning he timed his arrival perfectly to witness the aftermath, but not get caught. Then he stole the bodies. 2 adult corpses. A 4th grader somehow moved 2 adult bodies without anyone noticing, which raises questions about either supernatural strength or extremely concerning anatomical knowledge for someone who still needs a booster seat. Fifth move, he spent the night with a hacksaw butchering those bodies. He cut them up into pieces small enough to cook into chili. A child did this, overnight, with a hacksaw. Most kids his age are having sleepovers and arguing about which Power Ranger is the best. Cartman is out here performing amateur autopsy and butchery like he just speedran culinary school and forensic pathology simultaneously. Sixth move, he cooked the bodies into chili and hosted a carnival the next day like nothing happened, staying calm and collected enough to execute the final phase. He predicted Scott would bring his own chili with pubes in it, so Cartman switched Scott's chili with chef's, which was actually good. Then he made Scott eat the chili with his parents in it while explaining in perfect detail every single move he'd predicted correctly. The man gave a villain monologue that would make Thanos take notes. What pushes this beyond human is the reveal. Cartman explains everything. I assumed that they would tell you. I also know that you wouldn't go yourself. I came just in time to see Mr. Denkins giving his report. After a night with the hacksaw, I was all ready. He didn't get lucky. He didn't improvise. He predicted every single action multiple people would take with 100% accuracy and planned accordingly. That's supernatural knowledge, like having the strategy guide for a game that doesn't exist yet. Then Radiohead shows up at the exact moment Scott realizes he just ate his parents. Not 5 minutes early, not 5 minutes late, right when Scott is most vulnerable. The band calls him a crybaby and leaves, adding the perfect final humiliation. How did Cartman time this? How did he get a famous band to show up at a random kid's house in Colorado at the precise moment needed? He doesn't have money, connections, or any reasonable way to coordinate this timing, unless he's got a direct line to their tour manager, or demonic powers that bend reality. But here's where it gets really messed up, Cartman's reaction. He licks Scott's tears off his face, calling them yummy and sweet, and the tears of unfathomable sadness. Zero remorse, zero hesitation, zero human emotion. He's gleeful. He literally tastes the suffering he created and finds it delicious. That's something feeding on human misery like it's Michelin star cuisine. Even Kyle, who fights with Cartman constantly and never backs down, says, I think it might be best for us to never piss Cartman off again. Kyle recognizes that what they just witnessed wasn't a child getting revenge. It was something beyond their understanding, demonstrating what it's capable of when provoked. Basically, Kyle just watched the horror movie Twist, where you realize the call is coming from inside the house, except the house is his elementary school, and the call is coming from the fat kid who sits behind him in class. What happens when Cartman gets older? In later episodes, he literally controls Cthulhu, an ancient god that destroys cities. He manipulates entire governments. He orchestrates schemes that require knowledge he shouldn't have. The Scott Tenorman episode might be the first time he revealed what he really is, not a fat kid from Colorado, but something wearing a child's face that's been hiding among them since kindergarten, learning, adapting, and occasionally demonstrating its true nature when pushed far enough. South Park Elementary isn't teaching a troubled child. They're hosting something inhuman that just figured out how to butcher adults and cook them into chili before fourth period, which honestly raises more questions about their security protocols than anything else. If Cartman's evil feels inhuman, then Kenny's story proves the supernatural isn't a metaphor anymore because his parents literally turned immortality into a family business. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. Kenny's parents farm their son for his immortality. Kenny McCormick dies constantly throughout South Park, but his parents barely react. In Season 14's Coon vs. Coon and Friends, it's revealed that Kenny's immortality comes from his parents attending Cthulhu cult meetings every time he dies. His mother immediately gives birth to him again overnight, and he wakes up fully grown in his bed. This theory suggests Kenny's parents didn't accidentally curse their son. They deliberately maintain the curse because Kenny's endless cycle of death and rebirth serves a purpose. He's a renewable resource they're harvesting, whether for cult favor, supernatural benefits, or something even darker. Cartman joins Nambla, drops the first clue. Kenny's parents announce they're trying to have another baby, which Kenny desperately tries to prevent through increasingly disturbing methods, replacing his dad's porn with gay magazines, switching his mom's birth control with Tic Tacs, nailing his dad in the groin with a baseball. At the end of the episode, Kenny gets crushed by an ambulance. Cut to Hell's Pass Hospital. Carol is holding an infant who looks exactly like Kenny, complete with the orange parka already on. Stuart leans over and says, "God, this must be the 50th time this has happened." Carol corrects him. 52nd time. They've been counting. Normal parents would be traumatized after the first death, devastated after the second, completely broken by the 10th. Stuart and Carol are on number 52 and treating it like changing a light bulb. Oh, Kenny died again. Here comes the replacement. The episode is literally the 53rd episode of South Park, meaning the writers are confirming that every single one of Kenny's deaths has resulted in this exact rebirth process. The McCormicks aren't grieving parents, they're factory managers tracking inventory, and they were still trying to have another baby while Kenny was alive. Why would parents whose son dies bi-weekly want to introduce a second child into this nightmare? Either they're expanding operations, or they need a backup in case Kenny's curse breaks. That's production logistics. Fast forward to the Coon and Friends trilogy. Kenny, playing superhero Mysterion, reveals his superpower is immortality. He dies multiple times, even commits suicide repeatedly, and wakes up in his bed each time, fully remembering every excruciating detail of his death. When he tries telling his friends, they immediately forget. Kyle even says immortality would be cool, but Kenny passionately disagrees, explaining the constant trauma of dying over and over while nobody acknowledges it. The kid is essentially trapped in his own personal horror movie on infinite loop. Then comes the reveal. Carol wakes up panicking, says, "It's happening again," and immediately gives birth to another Kenny. She wraps him in his orange parka, places him in bed, then says the critical line, "We never should have gone to that cult meeting," except they keep attending. Mysterion Rises shows Kenny's parents still going to Cthulhu cult meetings in the present day. The show frames it like they just go for the free beer, implying they're cheap alcoholics who stumbled into dark magic. But you don't keep attending the cult meetings that cursed your child with eternal suffering because the refreshments are decent. Nobody's that broke. They're still participating because the arrangement benefits them. Think about what Kenny's immortality actually provides. Every time he dies, he's instantly replaced with a perfect copy. Kenny absorbs all the trauma while they face zero accountability. From their perspective, they didn't curse their son, they gave themselves immunity from loss. That's a feature, not a bug. The McCormicks are the poorest family in South Park. Their house is falling apart, Stuart can barely hold a job, and they're constantly struggling. Yet they refuse to leave South Park despite having every reason to escape. Why stay in a town where your son dies constantly? Because Kenny's curse might be location-specific or cult-specific. Moving would break their arrangement. They're choosing poverty over breaking the cycle that keeps their son eternally suffering. Kenny remembers every death. His parents know this. Carol's panicked, "It's happening again," isn't surprise. It's routine dread. They're aware their son relives brutal deaths on repeat, and they keep showing up to cult meetings that sustain the curse. They could stop attending. They could move. They could try breaking it. Instead, they show up for free beer and maintain the cycle. Kenny might be the only thing keeping his parents together. Stuart and Carol have a dysfunctional relationship fueled by alcoholism and poverty, but they can't fully fall apart because Carol needs to be alive and near Stuart to give birth to Kenny each time. If they divorce or one dies, the cycle might break. They're locked in codependent misery, where their son's eternal suffering is the glue holding their failed marriage together, which is somehow more depressing than any of Kenny's actual deaths. In later seasons, Kenny dies less frequently, but his immortality remains canon. Within South Park's continuity, Kenny is still dying and being reborn constantly, we just don't see it every episode. His parents are still attending cult meetings. Carol is still giving birth overnight. Kenny is still waking up with memories of being crushed, burned, exploded, or eaten alive. And his parents pretend everything's normal while actively maintaining their son's nightmare. The McCormicks didn't accidentally curse Kenny. They created a system where their child absorbs infinite suffering, so they never face permanent loss. Kenny is their emotional and possibly supernatural buffer against consequence. They farm his deaths like a renewable resource, harvesting resurrections while he drowns in trauma nobody else remembers. That's exploitation with an orange parka on it. Kenny's parents exploit his immortality for profit, and Stan learns that seeing the world clearly comes with permanent, invisible scars. If you like what you're watching, make sure you're subscribed. Stan's depression is permanent, and his recovery is just him learning to pretend. A 10-year-old has a birthday party, and suddenly everything, music, movies, food, his friends, starts looking and sounding like literal garbage. His parents divorce, he loses his friends, and the world becomes an endless parade of feces. The next episode, he seems better, but this theory suggests Stan didn't recover from depression, he just learned to mask it. He permanently broke through the illusion that makes life bearable, saw that everything actually is meaningless garbage, and his recovery is just him pretending he can't see it anymore, so people will tolerate him again. In the episode You're Getting Old, Stan turns 10 at his birthday party. Kyle gives him a Gersploosh album, a tween wave band, but Sharon confiscates it because she thinks tween wave sounds like crap. Randy disagrees and decides to prove he's still cool by listening to it himself. He puts on headphones, starts bobbing his head to the beat, then suddenly explosive diarrhea sounds blast through the speakers. Randy's confused, he checks to make sure he didn't actually crap himself. Sharon appears at the doorway with her arms crossed, vindicated. Randy goes to the doctor, convinced something's wrong with his ears. Doctor, Carol runs tests and delivers the diagnosis. You have what we call a gunk in your ears. Basically, it means that as you've gotten older, gunk has built up in your ears and now everything sounds like garbage. Randy protests that he's only 42, but the doctor explains it happens to everyone. Eventually you get older, build up gunk in your ears, and suddenly everything sounds terrible. The cure? You gotta realize that things aren't actually garbage. You just think they are, 'cause you're getting older. Meanwhile, Stan discovers he has the same condition, except he's only 10 years old. Everything starts looking and sounding like literal garbage to him. His friends show him a new video game, it's just trash. They play him music nasty, squelchy sounds. He goes to the movies, and every single trailer is just mess. Adam Sandler dropping stuff on people, Jim Carrey carrying muck around, a duck president making a mess everywhere. His friends think the trailers look great. Stan sees garbage. His friends get progressively more annoyed with him. Kyle says, "You're a bummer to be around. Everything is. That looks like trash and this is lousy." They start avoiding him, lying about being sick so they can hang out without him. Stan begs Kyle to let him come to the movies, promises he won't complain. He lasts approximately 3 minutes before calling everything trash again. Kyle walks out. Cartman says, "We don't want to hang out with you anymore. Get it through your head." Stan tries one last time. "Kyle, I haven't changed. The world has. Don't you see it?" Kyle responds, "No, and I don't want to." Then from Stan's perspective, poop starts coming out of Kyle's mouth, and he transforms into a huge turd. Kyle actually just walks away normally, but Stan now sees even his best friend as literal garbage. The episode ends devastatingly. Randy and Sharon's marriage collapses because they've both become unhappy. Sharon says, "It's like the same stuff just happens over and over, and then in a week it just all resets until it happens again. Every week it's kind of the same story in a different way, but it just keeps getting more and more ridiculous." This is literally describing South Park's episodic format. Sharon is breaking the fourth wall by acknowledging they're stuck in a sitcom loop. Stan's parents divorce. His mom moves them into a new apartment. Stan sits alone in the cafeteria surrounded by turds that are supposed to be his classmates. He walks through South Park completely isolated. A duck in a tux quacks and poops on him. The final shot is Stan lying in his new bed in his new room, staring at the ceiling, the visual representation of a kid who's lost everything because he saw through the illusion. The next episode, Ass Burgers, shows Stan seemingly recovering by drinking alcohol. He discovers that getting drunk makes everything stop looking like bad temporarily, which is how he manages to reconnect with his friends and function again. By the end, his parents get back together and everything resets to normal. Stan appears cured. But here's the theory. Stan never actually recovered. He just learned to perform normalcy well enough that people would tolerate him again. The depression episode isn't a temporary breakdown he overcame, it's permanent enlightenment he learned to hide. He saw through the matrix, realized that life actually is meaningless, repetitive garbage, and discovered that the only way to survive is pretending you don't see it. Think about what Stan's cynicism actually represents. It's not him being pessimistic, it's him perceiving reality accurately for the first time. The doctor literally diagnoses getting older as building up junk in your ears, which is a metaphor for how people cope with existence by developing mental filters that make meaningless things seem meaningful. Children naturally see the world as magical and exciting. Adults develop cynicism, poop in their ears, to cope with the fact that nothing matters. Stan developed this awareness at 10 instead of 40. When Stan tells Kyle, "I haven't changed, the world has," he's absolutely correct. The world didn't suddenly become bad, it always was. Stan just stopped having the mental filter that makes people think Adam Sandler movies are good, that tween wave music is enjoyable, that any of this has meaning. His friends don't want to see it because seeing it makes life unbearable. Kyle explicitly says, "No, and I don't want to." He's choosing comfortable delusion over uncomfortable truth. Sharon's monologue about how the same stuff just happens over and over is the show's creators acknowledging that South Park is a perpetual reset button. Every week, something ridiculous happens, then everything goes back to normal. Stan is the only character who notices this and finds it horrifying. Everyone else just keeps participating in the cycle because that's how sitcoms work. Stan broke the fourth wall psychologically and can't unsee it. His recovery in the next episode comes from alcohol, literally chemically altering his brain, so he stops perceiving reality accurately, that medicating yourself back into the delusion. When he stops drinking, everything would go back to looking like garbage. The episode ends with everything returning to normal, but the implication is that Stan is now just performing normalcy. He knows the truth. He's seen behind the curtain. He's just pretending he hasn't, because that's the only way to keep his friends and family. For the rest of the series, Stan functions normally. He goes on adventures, he reacts to things, he participates in the show. But under that performance is a kid who knows that none of it means anything, that they're stuck in an endless loop of reset buttons, that his friends are choosing comfortable ignorance, and that the only way to survive is faking it. Every smile is a mask. Every laugh is performed. Every moment of engagement is Stan consciously choosing to participate in the illusion because the alternative is complete isolation. Stan didn't recover from depression. He just got better at hiding it. He learned that people don't want truth, they want the performance of happiness, so he gives them the performance. But somewhere deep down, everything still looks and sounds like garbage. He just stopped saying it out loud. Stan learned to hide the truth of a meaningless world, and then his father weaponized fabricated memories to trap him in someone else's trauma. Before we move on, make sure you're subscribed. Stan was never at that hockey game. Randy fabricated the entire memory. A fourth grader coaches a kindergarten pee-wee hockey team to pay off parking tickets. One of the kids has terminal cancer and dies when they lose the big game. Throughout all this, the kid's dad keeps referencing a traumatic hockey failure from the fourth grader's childhood at the exact same arena. The fourth grader has zero memory of this supposed failure. This theory suggests Randy completely made up the childhood hockey trauma and has been gaslighting Stan about it for years, then weaponized a dying kindergartner to finally make his fake memory real. Season 10's Stanley's Cup starts with Stan getting his bike impounded for unpaid parking tickets. The county judge won't give it back unless Stan learns a valuable lesson, because apparently the judicial system operates on after-school special logic. The judge forces Stan to coach the Park County Pee-wee hockey team, which turns out to be kindergartners who can barely stand on ice skates. One kid, Nelson, is bald and wearing jersey number 13. He has terminal cancer, which the episode treats with all the sensitivity of a monster truck rally announcer. Stan meets the team and immediately realizes he's dealing with children who don't understand basic concepts like passing or not spitting on each other's feet. One chubby kid announces, "My mommy said I'm as big as the sky," for no reason. Another needs to go potty, but can't go alone. When Stan tries to assign positions, Nelson reveals he can't play goalie because his doctor says he's not supposed to. Stan assumes asthma. Another kid clarifies, "No, he has cancer." Nelson starts weeping about why he has to have cancer, and Stan is just trying to run a hockey practice while kindergartners ask him why people get cancer, like he's got a PhD in oncology, instead of being a 10-year-old with parking tickets. The moment Randy learns Stan is coaching hockey, he immediately brings up this supposed childhood trauma. Stan comes home exhausted from dealing with kindergartners, and Randy's waiting for him. "Can you believe it, Stan? The Pepsi Center. You're going back to the place where it all happened. Same place where you missed that shot all those years ago." Randy delivers this line like Stan's childhood hockey failure is September 11th level historical significance. He continues, "I can't. sit there in that same crowd and watch you destroy yourself again, like he's describing PTSD from witnessing a war crime. Here's where it gets weird. Stan has absolutely no memory of this supposed traumatic event. Randy keeps bringing it up in vivid detail, treating it as a defining moment of Stan's childhood, and Stan's reaction is basically, "Okay, Dad, I'm working on my game plan right now." A kid would definitely remember a traumatic sports failure if it was as life-destroying as Randy claims. But Stan's response isn't, "Oh yeah, that was awful," or "I don't want to talk about it." It's complete non-acknowledgement. He just wants Randy to leave him alone so he can draw up plays. Randy treats the Pepsi Center like his own personal Vietnam. Of all the places, why does it have to be the Pepsi Center? He acts like the universe personally victimized him by having Stan coach at this specific location. Not, "That's where you failed, son, but you've got this." More like, "Why are you doing this to me?" Randy's making Stan's supposed childhood trauma about Randy's own emotional distress, which is the first red flag that this memory might not be Stan's at all. Meanwhile, Nelson's condition gets worse, and his parents show up at Stan's house to tell him Nelson looks up to Stan like a father. They're offloading their dying son's emotional needs onto Adasa's 10-year-old stranger who's coaching kindergarten hockey as court-ordered community service. The doctor pulls Stan aside with a warning. If you lose the big game, that little boy is going to die faster than Steve Irwin in a tank full of stingrays. Nelson's life is now tied to a kindergarten hockey game like he's a video game NPC whose quest objective is win sports match or die. The whole episode is extremely meta about following sports movie formulas. There's a judge character who keeps appearing with a record player to narrate Stan's life like movie trailers. Stan Marsh is a washed-up 4th grader, and now he's about to find out that to coach, you've got to grow. The episode is explicitly about forced narratives and imposed story structures, which is exactly what Randy is doing to Stan with this fabricated memory. They get to the Pepsi Center for the big game. The opposing Pee Wee team doesn't show up, so technically Park County wins by default. Problem solved, right? Nope. The Colorado Avalanche decide to let these kindergartners play against the Detroit Red Wings instead, an actual NHL team. What follows is basically a snuff film disguised as a hockey game. The Red Wings demolish these children 32-2. Kids getting smashed into walls, faces stepped on with skate edges, pucks fired directly into tiny goalies. It's horrific, and Stan keeps yelling, "Stop, stop this," while the crowd chants, "Let them play." And here's the critical moment that reveals everything. Randy screams, "No, not again, no," not "oh no," or "this is terrible," or "poor Stan," specifically, "not again." Randy is experiencing his own repeated trauma, not witnessing Stan's first failure. The word, "again," reveals Randy has been here before at the Pepsi Center, watching a devastating loss. But that loss was Randy's, not Stan's. Randy failed at hockey as a child, couldn't cope with his own inadequacy, and decided to retroactively make Stan believe they share this failure. Nelson watches the game on his hospital TV, says, "No hope, no hope," then immediately dies. His vitals flatline, while the Red Wings celebrate to Queen's "We are the champions." A kindergartner with cancer just died, so Randy could cement a false memory in Stan's mind. Randy gets to validate his fabricated trauma. "See, this happened to you before, and now it's happening again." Except Stan never failed at the Pepsi Center as a child. Randy manufactured a childhood trauma for Stan, then orchestrated circumstances where a real failure occurred at the same location, creating a fake pattern of repeated defeat. The long-term implications are genuinely disturbing. Randy's entire dialogue treats the Pepsi Center like a location of personal trauma, HIS trauma. He can barely bring himself to attend, but Stan has no memory of ever playing there as a child. Because he didn't, Randy did. Randy failed at hockey decades ago, and instead of processing that failure like a functional adult, he's been gaslighting his son into believing Stan failed too. He's been telling Stan about this supposed traumatic hockey game for years, waiting for an opportunity to make it happen again so the false memory would feel real. When the team loses and Nelson dies, Randy gets exactly what he wanted, a real hockey failure at the Pepsi Center that Stan will actually remember. Now Stan has a genuine traumatic memory tied to that location, which retroactively validates Randy's years of gaslighting about the first time. Randy's "not again" scream wasn't about Stan's repeated failure. It was Randy reliving his own childhood trauma that he's been projecting onto Stan for years. A kindergartner with terminal cancer died so Randy could stop carrying his shame alone. That's using your child as a trauma receptacle and weaponizing dying kids to make your gaslighting stick. Randy Marsh didn't just fail at hockey decades ago. He failed so hard that he's spent years gaslighting his son into believing Stan failed too. And when given the opportunity, he let a child die to cement that false memory as real. Stan will carry that Pepsi Center loss for the rest of his life, never knowing it was Randy's failure he inherited, not his own. South Park grooms elementary school girls into sex workers. Stan gets dumped during a football game and spirals into genuine depression, crying under streetlights, unable to leave his bed, articulating real heartbreak. My chest hurts. I feel this sinking feeling where my heart is. It's broken. Kyle's solution is to take him to Raisins, a Hooters-style restaurant staffed entirely by elementary school girls who flirt with male customers for tips. This theory suggests Raisins is systematic grooming that teaches fourth-grade girls to weaponize sexuality and emotional manipulation for profit, with adult supervision and financial rewards from male customers. Season 7's Raisins opens with BB interrupting a football game to deliver news. Wendy breaks up with you. Stan walks off devastated, while his friends assume masculine suppression means he doesn't care. He ends up stroking pictures of Wendy in his darkened bedroom, processing genuine loss. When the boys visit to intervene, Kyle decides the solution is showing Stan there's other girls out there at Raisins. The restaurant is a Hooters clone where elementary school girls wear crop tops and short shorts. They're named after luxury cars Mercedes, Porsche, Lexus, Ferrari, signaling these girls are being taught their value is expensive property men purchase. Lexus arrives at their table and immediately begins her performance. God, I am so glad you guys came in, because everyone else in here is like, such a loser, but you guys seem really cool. She's teaching these boys that female attention is conditional, exclusive, and based on perceived status. Butters is immediately hooked. Lexus targets him specifically. You know, I really like you. When he asks if she means him in particular, she confirms, you. Butters interprets this as genuine connection. Maybe we can go on a date or something, she responds. That would be so cool. Listen, I gotta go, but I'll be back, okay? She leaves, and Butters believes he's in love. Throughout the restaurant, other girls run identical scripts, make customers feel special, unique, chosen, create the illusion of genuine interest to maximize tips. Stan sits there completely dead inside, unable to engage because he's experiencing real emotional pain, while his friends try to replace genuine connection with transactional flirtation. Butters returns multiple times, each visit draining his allowance as he tips Lexus. She tells him she'd love to see a movie sometime, and Butters buys her a photo at the mall. Cartman identifies the transaction. Dude, you paid to have your picture taken with her. Butters doesn't care. That just means she's a good girlfriend. She doesn't blow all her money, Kyle tries explaining. Butters, she's not your girlfriend. Those girls just act interested to get tips. Butters refuses. No, Lexus really likes me. We're gonna get married. Then comes the disturbing reveal behind the scenes. The girls gather around their manager who coaches them on manipulation techniques. She tells them their job is to make every customer feel special and to always be working them for tips. This isn't girls independently figuring out manipulation. There's adult supervision actively, teaching elementary school children how to extract money through fake intimacy. When Butters returns, Lexus performs perfectly. She sits on his lap, plays with his hair, tells him he's so cute, and Butters hands over more money. Every gesture is transactional. Every smile has a price. He's learning that love is purchased, that female affection is a service, and that when money stops, relationships end. His parents investigate. Steven arrives at Raisins and immediately understands, oh boy, I think I know what's happened. Our son hasn't learned yet that girls will pretend to like him for money. Linda is horrified. This place is horrible. To objectify girls like this. Portia takes their order. Linda tries intervening. Little girl, you shouldn't work somewhere where you're paid for how you look. You should be learning a skill so you can grow up to be a businesswoman or even a doctor. Who knows? You could cure cancer. Portia responds. I could cure cancer? Oh my God, that would be so cool. I had a cancer sore on my lip once and it hurts so bad. Linda pauses. Oh, never mind. I think Raisins might be the perfect place for you. This moment reveals the system's true horror. These girls are being funneled based on perceived intelligence and future earning potential. Portia is too stupid to become a doctor, so Raisins becomes her training ground for a lifetime of transactional sexuality. The restaurant captures girls with limited prospects and teaches them their only value is sexual performance for male approval. Stephen explains to Butters, women know that they can make men do anything by flirting, and some girls, like these, turn that into a profession. He's describing vocational training. These girls are learning skills they'll use forever. Identify vulnerable men, perform emotional intimacy, extract maximum payment, move on when customers stop being profitable. Butters defends his relationship. You don't approve of my girlfriend. Our love is as pure as a mountain spring. He storms off, declaring he's moving in with Lexus. She drops the act. What are you talking about, kid? We are not boyfriend and girlfriend. Butters is devastated. She's completely honest. I'm sorry, sweetie. I gotta go. I gotta get these curly fries to table 12. She walks away, and Butters stands there, financially drained and emotionally destroyed, processing that everything he thought was real was purchased performance. The episode ends with both boys recovering from heartbreak, but Raisins is still operating. The girls are still working. Adult men are still paying elementary school girls to flirt with them, and nobody, not parents, not school, not law enforcement, does anything to stop it. Because Raisins isn't presented as a problem, it's presented as normal business. Stephen's line reveals everything. Our son hasn't learned yet that girls will pretend to like him for money. Not, our son is being exploited, but our son is too naive to understand the transaction. The lesson isn't, this restaurant is wrong. It's, Butters needs to learn how female attention works in capitalism. Raisins teaches two groups simultaneously. Girls learn to weaponize sexuality for profit. Boys learn that female affection is transactional. Every child who enters learns intimacy is purchased. Relationships are negotiations. Love is a service industry. The girls learn their products. The boys learn their consumers. These aren't teenagers. They're 9 and 10-year-olds in crop tops sitting on boys' laps, collecting money for physical affection. The episode plays this as comedy, but underneath is a restaurant full of children learning that their bodies are commodities and male approval is purchased through performed desire. Nobody stops it. The restaurant operates openly, legally, with parental knowledge and societal acceptance. Because in South Park, grooming children into transactional sexuality isn't a crime, it's just another business. Lexus will carry this training forever. She'll know exactly how to identify vulnerable men, perform interest, and extract maximum value. She learned it at 9 years old, supervised by adults, rewarded with tips from male customers. Butters will remember that the first girl he loved was paid to fake it, that every smile had a price, that when the money stopped, so did the affection. Raisins isn't a restaurant, it's a training facility, and South Park lets it operate because teaching children that love is transactional is easier than teaching them that human connection has value beyond currency. Cartman engineers child disappearances for personal gain. Kyle announces he's taking 3 friends to Casa Bonita for his birthday. When Cartman learns he's not invited, he convinces Butters that a meteor is about to strike Earth and locks him in a refrigerator at an abandoned gas station, telling him to hide there for 4 days. The refrigerator gets hauled to the trash dump. Butters goes missing for over a week, triggering a massive police investigation, missing person billboards, and town-wide panic. Cartman shows zero remorse and only frustration that Kyle survived. This theory suggests Cartman's sophisticated execution of a kidnapping, knowing exactly where to hide a child, how long before permanent harm occurs, and understanding police protocols indicates prior research, planning, or practice. Season 7's Casa Bonita opens with Kyle excitedly announcing his mother is taking him to Casa Bonita in Denver and he gets to invite 3 friends. Cartman immediately stands up celebrating, already singing about the restaurant. Then Kyle delivers the blow. "Who said I'm inviting you? You're not my friend." Cartman tries to negotiate, pointing out there's no one else to invite besides Stan and Kenny. Kyle reveals he's taking Butters instead, because Butters isn't a total dick to me. Cartman's response is immediate denial. "I have never been a dick to you." Kyle rolls his eyes and triggers a flashback montage of every time Cartman has called him a Jew or ripped on his religion, dozens of instances across multiple seasons. The montage ends, and Cartman hasn't changed his stance. Okay, so I might have been a little bit insensitive, but that doesn't mean you should bring Butters to Casa Bonita instead of me. Kyle refuses to budge. The episode establishes that Cartman wants Casa Bonita more than anything he dreams about it, crosses off days on a calendar he made specifically for the countdown, plans exactly which attractions to visit first. But Kyle won't relent, so Cartman creates a plan. He approaches Butters with manufactured urgency. Butters, I just saw on the news there's a meteor headed straight for Earth. We have to find shelter. Butters panics immediately. Cartman leads him to an abandoned gas station and tells him they need to hide in the old bomb shelter. The specificity here is critical. Cartman knows about this location, knows it has a bomb shelter, knows it's isolated enough that no one will find them. This isn't improvisation, this is reconnaissance. Inside the shelter, Cartman continues the performance. He claims he needs to go back outside to secure the perimeter and tells Butters to stay hidden. Then he fabricates an attack. The cannibal's dead, Butters, but he bit me, which means soon I will have a taste for human flesh as well. He's creating a scenario where Butters will voluntarily imprison himself. We have no choice, Butters. We have to lock you away somewhere where even I can't get to you. He points to an old refrigerator. Get inside, Butters. I'll break off the handle so nobody can get to you. Butters asks if Cartman is coming too. Cartman responds, too late for me. I can already feel my body start to change. Don't open this door for anybody, Butters. No matter what you hear, stay inside for 4 days. He specifies exactly 4 days, the amount of time until Casa Bonita. He's calculated the timeline precisely. Butters says, Eric, you're the best friend in the whole world. I love you. Cartman responds, I love you too, man. Then immediately feigns transformation. You look so delicious. Must eat your brains. Butters slams the refrigerator door shut. Cartman rips off the handle and walks away laughing. A garbage truck arrives moments later and hauls the refrigerator to the county dump. That timing is too perfect. Cartman didn't just know about the abandoned gas station, he knew the garbage collection schedule. He knew that refrigerator would be removed and taken somewhere Butters couldn't escape from. He engineered a scenario where Butters would be declared missing but would actually be alive, hidden in plain sight at a location Cartman selected for a duration Cartman specified. The next morning, Cartman wakes up cheerful, crosses off another day on his Casa Bonita countdown calendar, and fantasizes about cliff divers. He shows no concern about Butters, no worry about whether his plan worked, just certainty that everything is proceeding as designed. Meanwhile, a massive emergency response unfolds. Missing person billboards go up across the highway with Butters' face and the South Park Police Department's phone number. The entire town mobilizes to search for him. Resources are diverted, the police investigate, parents panic, and Cartman watches all of this happen while counting down days to Casa Bonita. At the dump, Butters eventually kicks his way out of the refrigerator after running out of air. He looks around at the garbage and believes the meteor actually hit. Oh my God, the meteor took out everything. It's all destroyed, nothing left. He wanders through the dump searching for survivors, calling out for other people, convinced he's in a post-apocalyptic wasteland. He builds a memorial statue to Eric Cartman, the person who gave his life so that I could rebuild society. Butters spends over a week at the dump before a worker named Irene finds him. She tells him, this place is a dump. The town is right over there, everybody is fine, and I think they've been looking for you for over a week. Butters realizes he's been tricked. He asks to use her phone. On the day of Casa Bonita, Sheila drives the boys to Denver. They pass one of the missing person billboards with Butters' face on it. Nobody comments. Cartman is too excited about finally reaching his destination. They arrive at the restaurant and Sheila's phone rings. They found Butters. He's okay. Cartman's celebration stops. His grin turns to panic. Then Sheila's face changes. Oh, really? She hangs up and says, it appears that Eric here is responsible for Butters missing because he wanted to go to Casa Bonita. The police are already on their way. Cartman's response isn't guilt or fear, it's desperation to experience Casa Bonita before getting arrested. He takes Kyle hostage, backs toward the restaurant entrance, then abandons the hostage situation entirely and just runs inside. He races through every attraction he dreamed about, grabbing food from strangers' plates, running through Black Bart's cave, watching the cliff divers, eating sopapillas, catching the puppet show. When police corner him at the top of the cliff, he jumps into the pool below. The officer pulls him out and delivers the consequences. You made an entire town panic, you lost all your friends, and now you're going to juvenile hall for a week. Was it worth it? Cartman smiles and responds, totally. That response reveals everything. Cartman engineered a week-long child disappearance crisis that mobilized an entire town's emergency resources. He caused genuine panic among parents, police, and the community. He traumatized Butters, who spent over a week believing he was the sole survivor of an apocalypse, and Cartman considers it totally worth it because he got to spend 15 minutes running through Casa Bonita before getting arrested. But the sophistication of his plan suggests something darker. Cartman knew about an abandoned location with a bomb shelter. He knew the garbage collection schedule. He knew how to psychologically manipulate someone into voluntarily imprisoning themselves. He calculated the exact timeline needed 4 days to Casa Bonita. He understood that a missing child would trigger massive police response, but not immediate discovery if hidden correctly. He knew Butters would survive long enough in the refrigerator before being found. This isn't a child improvising. This is someone who understands kidnapping mechanics, police protocols, search patterns, and the critical 48-hour window for missing persons. The ease with which Cartman executed this plan, no hesitation, no mistakes, no panic when it succeeded, suggests either extensive research or prior practice. When asked if it was worth it, Cartman doesn't say, "I guess so," or show any doubt. He says totally, with complete confidence. He watches the massive emergency response he created and feels only satisfaction. A child doesn't casually orchestrate kidnappings this sophisticated, trigger town-wide panic, and show zero remorse unless they've mentally rehearsed or actually executed something similar before. Butters returned safely this time, but Cartman now knows exactly how to make a child disappear. If you're enjoying this, hit that subscribe button. Children are legally property, whose deaths are civil damages. Clyde's mother dies in a toilet accident after he leaves the seat up. Instead of treating this as a child's tragic loss, the entire town turns it into a debate about toilet seat etiquette, then a government regulation issue, then a lawsuit against a ghost. Betsy's husband disappears from the narrative. Her funeral becomes a platform for bathroom arguments. The government creates the Toilet Safety Administration to monitor toilets. Lawyers attempt to sue the inventor of the toilet. Clyde's grief is weaponized to push various agendas. This theory suggests that in South Park's legal and social framework, children aren't people, they're possessions whose deaths are treated as product liability cases rather than human tragedies. Season 16's Reverse Cowgirl opens with Clyde's mother Betsy screaming at him for leaving the toilet seat up. "What if I'd fallen in? Start listening to me. Put it down." She does this in front of his friends, humiliating him. The next day at school, she arrives in her nightgown and forces him to leave class and come home to put the seat down. Roger, Clyde's father, tries to intervene. "It's just not that big a deal," she refuses. "No, Roger, it's a disgusting habit and I'm sick and tired of it." That night, emergency vehicles surround the Donovan house. Betsy is stuck in the toilet after falling in. A fireman explains to Roger. When she fell into the toilet, she also made it flush. It created a suction that's literally pulling out her insides. When Roger asks if they can disconnect the plumbing, the paramedic responds, "Yes, but when we do that, the change in pressure will rip out her organs." Clyde asks if she's going to die. The fireman immediately turns to him. "Why did you leave the toilet seat up, son?" He's blaming the child instead of explaining the medical situation. Betsy uses her final moments to address Clyde. "I want you to know I don't blame you for this. We should have been harder on you all those times you left the toilet seat up." Even dying, she's focused on toilet seats. She begs them to disconnect the plumbing. They do. She screams as her organs are ripped out, then dies. At the funeral, Stephen Stotch delivers a eulogy. "I'm sure Betsy is hoping that her death will help women everywhere. Just take that extra second to look before they sit on a toilet." The camera reveals Betsy's corpse is still stuck in the toilet, dressed up and placed in the coffin that way. Linda Stotch stands up. "It isn't a woman's responsibility to see that the seat is down. It's a man's responsibility to put it down." All the women applaud. Another woman interrupts. "There's a little boy here who has lost his mother. He'll never see her again because he couldn't take that 6/10 of a second to put the toilet seat down. And now little Clyde's mother is dead and the blood is on his penis." She just called a grieving child a murderer at his mother's funeral. Nobody objects. The funeral isn't about mourning Betsy, it's about debating toilet seat etiquette using her corpse as a prop. After the funeral, The town creates the Toilet Safety Administration, the TSA, which begins monitoring all bathrooms in South Park. Agents are stationed in people's homes, watching them through security cameras, patting down citizens before they can enter bathrooms. The entire town accepts this as necessary because one woman died in a toilet accident. Then lawyers get involved. An attorney approaches Clyde, claiming they should sue. He holds a seance and tells them, "We'll hit him with a class action lawsuit tomorrow. We'll need all your friends and family to sign a petition and kick in $50 each." They're trying to sue the inventor of the toilet who's been dead for centuries. At a town meeting, they summon the ghost of Sir John Harrington, the toilet inventor. The attorney begins, "Sir Thomas Harrington, your extreme negligence has cost taxpayers millions. You will be sued, spirit." They're attempting to sue a ghost for product liability in a death that occurred because someone sat down without looking. Then Betsy's ghost appears, not to comfort Clyde, not to apologize for publicly humiliating him. She appears to blame him again. Putting the toilet seat down is a matter of simple etiquette. It's common sense, Clyde. Don't try and blame Mommy's death on anything but your failure to do something I have asked you time and time again to do. It's your fault, even dead. She's weaponizing her death against her son. Sir John Harrington's ghost appears and explains everyone has been using toilets wrong. You're supposed to sit backwards. The debate shifts to proper toilet usage. The TSA is disbanded. The lawsuit is dropped. Everyone goes home. The episode ends with Cartman calling Clyde. "I know you've had a tough week, Clyde, but at least your mom didn't die for nothing. I mean, we're kinda right back at the bathroom being the last bastion of American freedom. So, technically, your mom did die for nothing." Clyde angrily flips off the ceiling, presumably where his mother's ghost resides. Throughout the entire episode, several critical things never happen. Betsy's husband, Roger, appears at the death scene, then vanishes completely. He's not shown grieving or comforting Clyde. Betsy's parents are never mentioned. No criminal investigation occurs. Nobody examines whether Betsy's death was actually an accident or reckless endangerment on her part. Nobody asks if Clyde should be in therapy after watching his mother die screaming. The entire legal and social response treats Betsy's death not as a human tragedy, but as a product liability case. Clyde's grief is acknowledged only when it can be weaponized. The woman at the funeral mentions the little boy who has lost his mother, then immediately uses that to call him a murderer. The lawyer recruits Clyde not to seek justice, but to extract money from his friends and family. Cartman calls to joke about the funeral. Nobody actually supports Clyde emotionally. His mother's death is a punchline, a political football, a business opportunity, everything except what it should be, a child losing his parent. Betsy Donovan's entire existence is reduced to a product safety statistic. Her death triggers government regulation, legal action, and community debate, but never grief. She's processed as damaged property whose malfunction created liability questions. The resolution is learning the correct way to sit on toilets. In South Park's legal framework, children aren't people with rights. They're possessions whose loss creates financial inconvenience and regulatory headaches. Betsy's death is treated like a defective appliance: assign blame, determine liability, implement new safety measures, move on. The fact that a child lost his mother becomes relevant only when it can manipulate him into supporting lawsuits or regulations. Clyde will carry this forever. His mother publicly humiliated him repeatedly, died because of her own refusal to look before sitting, blamed him with her dying breath, then returned as a ghost to blame him again. The entire town agreed. Lawyers used his grief to extract money. The government used his loss to justify surveillance. His friends used his tragedy as comedy. Nobody, not his father, not teachers, not authorities ever told him, "This wasn't your fault." Because in South Park, children aren't individuals deserving of care. They're property whose damage can be assigned monetary value and used to justify whatever agenda adults want. Betsy Donovan died, and the world treated her like a broken appliance. Her son's grief became a resource to be mined. And nobody questioned whether reducing a human life to a product liability case might be fundamentally wrong. Clyde's mother died, and the world treated it like a defective appliance. And now Kenny learned that even love is just a transaction engineered by corporations. Disney grooms children into hypersexualized consumers. Kenny gets his first girlfriend, Tammy Warner, who the 5th graders call a slut because she gave a kid a blowjob in a TGI Fridays parking lot. When Kenny learns this, he celebrates. Tammy explains she only did it because watching the Jonas Brothers on Disney Channel makes her tingly, and causes her to lose control. Kenny buys concert tickets, expecting sexual favors in return. Backstage, Mickey Mouse explicitly reveals the purity rings are a marketing scheme designed to let Disney sell sex to children while parents remain oblivious. Meanwhile, Kenny is pressured into expensive purchases, rings, jewelry, fine dining, learning that relationships require constant financial performance. This theory suggests Disney deliberately markets sexual purity imagery while simultaneously grooming children for early sexual activity and consumer dependency, creating a psychological trap where girls learn their value is performing virginity while being sexualized, and boys learn intimacy is purchased. Season 13's The Ring opens with the boys watching Kenny eat lunch with Tammy Warner, a 5th grader he's been dating for 2 weeks. Butters runs up panicking with news. Tammy has a reputation for performing oral sex on a boy named Dave Darsky in a restaurant parking lot. Cartman is outraged that Kenny's heart will be broken. They decide to tell him. Kenny's response is immediate celebration, jumping for joy and dancing down the hall. An elementary school boy just learned his girlfriend has sexual experience, and his reaction is pure excitement because he assumes he'll receive the same treatment. He's been trained to view girlfriends as sexual service providers, and he's thrilled to finally have access. Kenny cheerfully suggests going to TGI Fridays. Tammy confesses about the rumors, admitting they're true but blaming her actions on watching the Jonas Brothers on Disney Channel. She describes how seeing them makes her tingly and causes her to completely lose control of herself. Tammy, an elementary school girl, has been conditioned to experience sexual arousal from a teenage boy band marketed to children. She's explaining that corporate media sexually stimulated her to the point where she performed sex acts, but she frames it as something that just happened rather than recognizing she was groomed. Kenny immediately buys 2 Jonas Brothers concert tickets. He explains that Tammy promised him oral sex if he got her the tickets. He's entered an explicit transactional agreement purchase concert tickets valued at $100 to $150. Receive oral sex in return. An elementary school relationship has become prostitution with extra steps. But the tickets are just the beginning. Kenny spends money at TGI Fridays for dinner, then buys Tammy a purity ring at a jewelry store. The clerk explains young people buy them to save themselves for marriage. Kenny thinks this will guarantee his reward, but the ring has the opposite effect. Tammy becomes demure, proper, religiously devoted to abstinence. Kenny tries initiating physical contact and she stops him, explaining the rings mean they must behave. Kenny is devastated. He spent hundreds of dollars, and instead of sexual gratification, he's trapped in a sexless relationship with mandatory dating expenses. The boys confront the Jonas Brothers at a television appearance, where the brothers prominently display their purity rings. Backstage, Mickey Mouse instructs his crew to get close-ups on the rings. The host asks about dousing girls with white foam at concerts. Mickey celebrates this as television gold. The boys storm the set, accusing them of selling sex to young girls. Mickey tranquilizes all 3 boys with darts. They wake up backstage with Mickey holding a chainsaw, demanding explanations. The boys insist they came because their friend's purity ring is destroying him. Kyle turns up the microphone volume, broadcasting Mickey's rant to the entire audience. Cartman opens the curtain, revealing Mickey. Mickey continues his rant, unaware he's being broadcast, explaining his business model explicitly. He states that the music is designed to sexually stimulate prepubescent girls, that this sexual stimulation is monetized when those girls become aroused, that the purity rings provide cover for selling sexuality to children, and that parents are deliberately deceived because they're too foolish to recognize the corporation is selling sex to their daughters, disguised as wholesome entertainment. Disney has created a system where elementary school girls are sexually stimulated by programming, then sold purity imagery that allows parents to ignore the sexualization. The corporation profits from both the initial sexual stimulation and the purity merchandise marketed as protection from that stimulation. After the scandal, Tammy removes her purity ring and suggests going to TGI Fridays. Kenny celebrates and they leave together. The episode ends at a funeral. Father Maxey delivers the eulogy, reminding everyone that syphilis is still deadly and can be caught even with protection, noting that this young boy learned the hard way about the dangers of oral sex. Kenny is dead, He finally got what he was promised, oral sex at TGI Fridays, and contracted a fatal sexually transmitted infection. An elementary school boy died from a disease typically associated with adult sexual activity, having been groomed into transactional sexuality by corporate media that taught him relationships require purchasing power and girlfriends provide sexual services in exchange for consumer goods. Disney created this. They sexually stimulated Tammy until she lost control. They sold Kenny the fantasy that purchasing products would result in sexual gratification. They marketed purity rings that trapped both children in impossible standards. When the purity marketing failed, they engaged in the sexual activity they'd been primed for, resulting in Kenny's death. The corporation profits at every stage, from sexualization, purity merchandise, concert tickets, jewelry, restaurant partnerships. Children learn that love requires spending money, that female affection is purchased, that male value is measured in consumer goods, and that sexuality is both forbidden and inevitable. Mickey Mouse is the architect of systematic childhood grooming disguised as wholesomeness, profiting from sexual confusion while parents applaud the purity messaging. And Kenny McCormick is dead because he believed the promise that purchasing the right products would earn him intimacy, exactly what Disney taught him. Kenny's childhood is a system that teaches him sex and money are inseparable, and that lesson drives him straight into a deadly coping mechanism. Kenny uses drugs to escape his death memories. South Park bans cats because their urine produces hallucinogenic effects when inhaled. Kenny immediately begins cheesing getting high by huffing cat urine and experiences elaborate fantasy sequences. While other kids try it once out of curiosity, Kenny becomes addicted, hiding in Cartman's attic to access cats and getting high repeatedly despite the risks. His hallucinations are always the same: a heavy metal-style fantasy world with a large-breasted woman and consistent locations he can navigate. The specificity and repetition suggest he's using drugs to access a consistent, alternate reality he can control, unlike his deaths, which he can't control. This theory suggests Kenny's heavy drug use isn't recreational experimentation, it's a desperate attempt to chemically suppress the accumulating trauma of remembering every death he's experienced, using hallucinogens to overwrite death memories with tolerable fantasies. Season 12's Major Boobage opens with Mr. Mackey warning the class about dangerous ways kids get high, choking themselves, sniffing glue, huffing paint. Kenny immediately begins trying to choke himself. Butters mentions kids in Florida get high off cat pee. Mackey confirms male cats spray concentrated urine that can get you really, really high. Kenny tries even harder to choke himself. The boys test this at Cartman's house with 2 male cats. The cats growl at each other until Mr. Kitty shoots concentrated urine into Kenny's face. Kenny staggers backward, eyes unfocused. His mind descends through space into an acid trip. He finds himself piloting a Thunderbird through a desert planet where a curvaceous woman joins him. They drive to a massive building covered with breast-shaped architecture. Inside, her father tells Kenny he can bathe with his daughter in a fountain if he appeases the gods. Kenny eagerly agrees and begins undressing. Back in reality, Cartman is shaking him awake in the middle of town. Kenny was trying to undress in public while hallucinating. The critical detail is Kenny's reaction. He doesn't express fear, confusion, or shame. He's found something he needs. South Park bans all cats. Families must give up their pets except Cartman, who begins hiding cats in his attic. Kenny discovers this and immediately returns to cheese again. While other characters try it once or twice out of curiosity, Kenny becomes severely addicted. He sneaks into Cartman's attic, grabs multiple cats, and squeezes them repeatedly. His face and parka are covered with cat piss. When discovered, Kenny is dancing and incoherent. This isn't experimentation, this is addiction. The specificity of Kenny's hallucinations reveals why he's addicted. Every trip takes him to the exact same fantasy world with consistent geography, characters, and narrative structure. There's the desert planet, the Thunderbird vehicle, the large-breasted woman, her father, the fountain of Varnov, the breastiary in Nippopolis, the mammary mountain with itty-titty fairies, the Gazongas cave with the boob goblin. Gerald, who also becomes addicted, describes these locations in detail, confirming they're consistent across users. This consistency is critical. Random hallucinations would be disorienting and unpredictable, exactly like Kenny's deaths. But this fantasy world is stable, navigable, controllable. Kenny can enter it, know where he is, understand the rules, predict outcomes. For someone who dies unpredictably and violently, having access to an alternate reality he can control is invaluable. Kenny's addiction isn't about the sexual content, though the episode uses that for comedy. It's about escaping into a world where he has agency. In his fantasy, he fights for prizes, completes quests, makes choices that matter. In real life, he dies randomly, crushed, diseased, murdered, and wakes up the next day with everyone having forgotten except him. The fantasy world offers what his real life never can: consistency and control. Gerald's addiction provides insight into adult escape. He explains that the more you enter that world, the more you need to go, until you start blowing off real people who care about you. This describes dissociation using fantasy to avoid reality. For Gerald, it's probably escaping marital problems. For Kenny, it's escaping accumulated trauma of remembered deaths. When Gerald admits his addiction publicly, he describes the fantasy's appeal but concludes the girl isn't real. Randy adds that you never get a good look at her anyway, suggesting the fantasy falls short but remains compelling enough to keep you returning. Gerald explains, "Kids will always find new ways to get high. The specific substance doesn't matter. What matters is the escape it provides." The episode ends with cats being legalized. Kenny picks a flower and inhales deeply. Stan comments that Kenny is just getting high on life. But then Kenny begins grabbing more flowers frantically, treating them exactly as he did the cats. He collapses, goes into spasms, and his eyes become unfocused. He's back in the Thunderbird, flying through space with the large-breasted woman, dancing through a universe where every planet looks like breasts. The disturbing implication is, Kenny doesn't care what substance he uses: cat urine, flowers, whatever provides access to his escape world. He's seeking dissociation from reality, and he needs it badly enough that when one source is removed, he immediately finds another, regardless of risk. For someone who dies regularly and remembers each death, this behavior makes complete sense. Imagine carrying memories of burning alive, drowning, being crushed, shot, diseased, exploded. Imagine waking up every morning knowing those experiences are permanent parts of your memory that nobody else acknowledges. Imagine having no therapeutic support because your trauma is literally invisible to everyone around you. Drug addiction under those circumstances isn't destructive behavior, it's the only coping mechanism available. Kenny is using hallucinogens to overwrite unbearable memories with controllable fantasy. The consistency of his trips suggests he's built a mental escape hatch, a place he can retreat to when reality becomes too traumatic. His friends think he's being a perverted kid while he's actually self-medicating for unacknowledged PTSD, making his isolation even more complete. Kenny McCormick isn't getting high for fun. He's chemically suppressing trauma that would destroy most people. Because nobody remembers his deaths except him, nobody realizes his addiction is a symptom of something darker: the accumulated psychological damage of experiencing mortality dozens of times while remaining perpetually 9 years old. The drugs aren't the problem. The unaddressed trauma of remembered deaths is. Kenny is just trying to survive by any means available. Kenny's chemical escapes show trauma-driving addiction, and in the next story, Stan's fantasies reveal that even imagination can become a battleground for suppressed rage. Stan creates ultra-violent fantasies to process suppressed rage. In Mr. Garrison's class, during Write Your Own Christmas Story Day, Cartman reads aloud an elaborate Christmas tale featuring Stan as the protagonist, encountering adorable woodland critters preparing for the birth of their savior. The animals are initially cute until it's revealed they worship Satan and the baby they're protecting is the Antichrist. The critters perform blood orgies, murder a mountain lion and her cubs with graphic violence, and plan to bring about the apocalypse. When characters try to stop them, Cartman writes them getting brutally killed. The story escalates until Santa appears and commits mass murder against the critters, describing their deaths in explicit detail: heads blown off, bodies torn apart, blood everywhere. This theory suggests Cartman's innocent-seeming Christmas story reveals he's processing extreme rage through creative outlets, creating fantasies where evil is permitted to exist and violence is justified, showing he's suppressing homicidal ideation that emerges through storytelling. Season 8's Woodland Critter Christmas opens with narration describing South Park preparing for Christmas, while forest animals decorate a Christmas tree. The woodland critters introduce themselves: Squirrely the squirrel, Rabbity the rabbit, Beavery the beaver, Beery the bear, Porcupiney the porcupine, Skunky the skunk, Foxy the fox, Deery the deer, Woodpeckery the woodpecker, Mousy the mouse, and Chickadee the chickadee. Stan walks by with a sled and they ask him to help find a star for their tree. He makes them one and they're grateful. That night, the critters appear in Stan's bedroom. They wake him up to announce that Porcupiney is pregnant through immaculate conception and will give birth to their Lord and Savior on Christmas Day. They need Stan to build a manger. Despite his protests about having school, Stan complies. The narration describes him building the manger while the critters celebrate. A mountain lion appears, and the critters panic, explaining that every Christmas, the mountain lion comes down and kills the virgin critter impregnated with the son of their Lord. They beg Stan to kill the mountain lion to protect their savior. Stan initially refuses to kill anything, but the critters guilt him into it, explaining their savior can never be born if the mountain lion lives. Stan finds the mountain lion's cave. The lioness tells him she's trying to protect the forest from something terrible. She reveals the critters aren't preparing for the birth of Jesus. They worship Satan. The baby being born is the Antichrist who will bring 1,000 years of darkness. She's been killing the pregnant critter every year to prevent the apocalypse. She shows Stan a book depicting the critters performing satanic blood orgies. Stan returns to confront the critters. They confirm everything, admitting they worship Satan and explaining they need Stan to kill the mountain lion because only humans can destroy another living creature in the forest. They've manipulated him from the beginning. When Stan refuses, they use their demonic powers to turn him inside out, leaving him as a walking mass of exposed organs and viscera. Stan finds the mountain lion again and begs her to teach her cubs how to perform abortions so they can terminate Porcupiney's pregnancy. The lioness agrees to train her cubs, but the critters find them and use their satanic powers to make the lioness explode. The cubs scatter in terror. Stan gathers them and leads them to an abortion clinic where a doctor teaches them the procedure. Stan returns with the abortion-trained lion cubs ready to stop the Antichrist from being born, but they're too late. The critters have already delivered the Antichrist, a grotesque creature lying in the manger. Kyle is tied to an altar. The critters explain they need to put the Antichrist into a human host body, and Kyle has been selected. Stan protests that 10,000 years of darkness doesn't sound like a Merry Christmas. Santa Claus arrives in his sleigh, furious about the red star glowing in the sky. The critters cheerfully explain they've brought forth the Antichrist with help from Stan. Santa scolds Stan for helping them, then announces there's only one way to stop devil-worshipping critters. He pulls out a shotgun and begins executing them systematically. Beavery's head is blown off first, then Deery goes down. Raccoony and Skunky's heads come off. Squirrely creates a wall of hellfire, but Santa simply jumps over it and blows Squirrely to pieces. Porcupiney explodes, then Foxy. Beery asks if Santa's really going to kill him. His head is blown off mid-sentence. The violence is described with explicit detail. Each critter death is shown graphically. Santa shows no hesitation, no remorse, just methodical execution of cute talking animals who moments earlier were singing Christmas songs. The juxtaposition of adorable woodland creatures being massacred by Santa Claus creates deeply disturbing imagery that serves no narrative purpose except showcasing extreme violence. Kyle walks toward the manger, announcing he wants the Antichrist inside him so he can make the earth better for Jews. The Antichrist's spirit enters Kyle's body. He climbs the altar and declares the Jews will take control of Christmas. Then the story breaks. The classroom is revealed. Kyle interrupts Cartman's reading, accusing him of using the story to mock him for being Jewish at Christmas. Mr. Garrison sides with Kyle, forcing Cartman to stop, but the other students want to hear the ending. They pressure Kyle until he agrees to let Cartman finish. Cartman resumes. Kyle realizes the Antichrist inside him feels dark and evil, and he's made a terrible mistake. Santa prepares to kill Kyle to stop the Antichrist. Stan remembers the lion cubs learned to perform abortions. The cubs reach deep into Kyle's body, retrieve the Antichrist with their teeth, and Santa smashes it with a sledgehammer. Santa resurrects the mountain lioness as a Christmas gift. Stan returns home for a perfect Christmas. The narrator concludes that everyone lived happily ever after except Kyle, who died of AIDS 2 weeks later. The disturbing element is that Cartman created this entire elaborate narrative as a vehicle for tormenting Kyle. The story has no purpose except showcasing extreme violence and ending with Kyle's humiliation and death. An 8-year-old doesn't casually write stories featuring blood orgies, infant antichrists, abortion procedures performed by animals, and mass executions unless processing something dark they can't express directly. Cartman's story reveals his suppressed homicidal ideation toward Kyle specifically. The entire narrative builds toward Kyle's degradation, first as a human sacrifice, then as willingly possessed, then as someone who needs an invasive abortion performed by animals, and finally dying of AIDS. Every escalation serves Cartman's psychological need to imagine Kyle suffering and dying. The story also reveals Cartman's understanding that extreme violence requires moral justification. He creates a scenario where violence is necessary and righteous. The critters are Satangent worshipping apocalypse bringers, so Santa's mass execution becomes heroic. Kyle volunteers to host the Antichrist, so his invasive abortion becomes salvation. Cartman constructs moral frameworks that legitimize his violent fantasies. The other students' enthusiastic response is equally disturbing. They're not horrified by the blood orgies, exploding animals, or graphic executions. They're entertained and demand to hear more. Even Stan, the protagonist of the story who Cartman forces to participate in murder and witness atrocities, asks to hear the ending. The classroom has normalized extreme violence as acceptable creative expression. This is how suppressed rage manifests in children who lack outlets for direct expression. Cartman can't actually hurt Kyle, so he creates elaborate fictional scenarios where Kyle suffers and dies. He can't commit violence, so he writes stories where violence is morally justified and narratively satisfying. The story becomes his outlet for impulses he's forbidden from expressing in reality, creating a fictional space where his darkest fantasies are not only permitted but celebrated by his peers. And nobody intervenes. Mr. Garrison only stops the story when Kyle feels discriminated against, not because an 8-year-old is reading graphic, violent fantasies to his classmates. The concern is political correctness, not the disturbing psychological content revealing a child processing homicidal ideation through creative writing. Cartman's rage is acknowledged, packaged as entertainment, and consumed without anyone questioning what it reveals about his mental state. If you enjoyed our video today and want more videos like these, subscribe to our channel.